Hello everyone, welcome to Flutter OnAir Summer Conference. It's super cool to see all of you here. Actually, my name is Maki and I'm the main organizer of this event. I hope everything's working fine. Everything's fine today. And I guess we can start. So if you have any questions during the live stream, feel free to ask, for example, in the chat on YouTube, or we use Slido, so join us with hashtag Flutter OnAir. What is the plan for today? We have 6 amazing speakers like Tomas, Dominik, Simon, Lara, Filip, or Jose. All talks will be in English. And the last talk, there is a Q&A session, or let's say discussion session with Filip and Jose from Google. We will chat about the Flutter Boring Show, Flutter Gallery, lifestyle at Google, etc. So definitely prepare questions. And actually, we have a small giveaway for you. But first, who is behind this event? Behind this event, it's just me. So hi, I'm Maki. I work as a Flutter developer. I'm fond of programming. I like Python, JavaScript, and of course, Dart and Flutter. In my spare time, I love organizing events like this one, for example, online conferences. But actually, it's my first one, so I hope it's working perfectly. And what about the giveaway? We have for you 5 vouchers on Google Merchandise Store, where you can, I don't know, for example, choose an amazing t-shirt. And there's one special prize for one attendee, and it's coffee with Googler. How does it work? Coffee with Googler is one-to-one online 20-minute session from a Googler from the Flutter team. And you wonder how to take part in. You just need to watch the live stream, because every speaker has a special keyword related to Flutter. And the keyword will be said a few times during the specific talk. And if you have if you have these 4 keywords, you just need to have the 4 keywords, because we have 6 speakers. So you can win the coffee with Google. And so thanks Google for providing us the amazing prizes. And actually in the registration, we ask let's say we ask about your favorite Flutter apps. So the favorite Flutter apps are Flutter Gallery, Reflectly, Alibaba, or Flock. If someone wants to see these super cool charts, it's this. And what about the packages? The most favorite one is definitely Provider or Flutterblock, but the Firebase and HTTP are very, very cool as well. Okay, they are. You can see here some charts as well. And I guess it's time to welcome our first speaker, who is Tomas. Tomas, he is an amazing developer and speaker. He is also a Google developer expert for Dart. And actually, looking backward, I've seen a few of his talks about Flutter, and it's the reason why I started with Flutter, because I was like, I guess I should learn it. So, hello, Tomas.
Hello, good for you, good for you. Thanks.
Okay.
I'm flattered.
The stage is yours.
Thank you. So my name is Tomas. I'm Flutter developer, and I'm going to talk on how to become a Flutter developer. So I must say that this talk is probably more targeted to beginners, but maybe it will help you to somehow organize your thoughts or your focus on Flutter. So you probably know that Flutter is this amazing framework for building mobile applications, Android, iOS, or even for web and desktop. And you probably even tried to install SDK, and maybe you tried the Hello World example. And maybe now you are a little bit overwhelmed where to begin or how to continue, because to be honest, Flutter is growing like crazy and there is a lot of things you need to ingest. So I would like to give you 3 main topics where you should focus your attention. It's Dart as a language. It's how to build your user interface, and also the third pillar of Flutter development, in my opinion, is state management. So let's dive into it. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on Dart because, first of all, I think that Dart is quite easy to learn if you know Java or JavaScript. This should feel very similar, and I would say it's quite intuitive. Dart has a lot of modern features and also quite extensive language guides and online resources, so you can learn Dart from official website. But nonetheless, Dart is definitely one of the pillars you need to study if you want to become Flutter developer. So let's talk about building your user interface. It's quite easy, isn't it? It's just a tree of Dart objects. Actually, we don't even need to write the new keyword here, so we can write it like this. And this is a very simple piece of UI. It's just text centered on the screen. Of course, you can build something more complicated, like this column of 3 widgets, again, centered on the screen. But there is a catch. You cannot modify your UI. Once you build it, you just cannot change it. You can store a column in a variable, but you cannot access it later. You cannot change it. You cannot add child or remove child. It just cannot be done. It doesn't make any sense in Flutter. But obviously, you need to change the UI from time to time, right? So what can you do? It's important that you understand how Flutter works behind the scenes. Whenever Flutter framework decides that the UI must be changed or rendered, it will call your build methods, and depending on the state of your application, you will build a tree of widgets like this, for example. If you want to be all fancy about it, you can say that user interface in Flutter is function of state, which sounds quite educated. And every time Flutter decides that state has changed, it will call your build method, and it can be done 60 frames per second. Actually, all animations or interactivity in Flutter is done like that. The tree of widgets is immutable, so you need to build it again from scratch every time something changes. Don't think too much about it. Don't overthink it. Flutter will take good care of this problem. Flutter will optimize the rendering process so that only the work necessary is actually done. So unless you know perfectly well what you are doing, don't try to optimize it if it's not if it's not causing you any problems. Just believe Flutter in this. So I'm talking about three of widgets. So what is a widget in Flutter? Well, everything is a widget. It's quite easy. The center layout is a widget. Column of widgets is a widget. Text is a widget. Button is a widget. You can think about it as it's like a Lego brick, and I know it's a little bit cliche in IT, but in this case, I would say that it is actually true, because you can combine Flutter widgets almost any way you want, just like Lego bricks. Every widget is equal with other widgets, so you can put the raised button into center, or text into center, or center into column, and so on, and it will work. Let me give you through a few examples what widgets we have, and some of them might be maybe even surprising for beginners. So definitely all layouts are widgets, of course. Center, or row of widgets, or column of widgets. Stack, which allows you to put widgets on top of each other. Everything here is a widget. Also, scaffold is a widget. It's this very useful tool which allows you to build material design screen with nice up bar, main content, bottom bar, floating action button, very useful. And another is, for example, custom paint widget, which will allow you to draw anything if you need a nice piglet in your application. So there isn't any piglet widget in Flutter, but you can easily create it on your own. You can draw directly on canvas if you need to. This one is my favorite. Your application is a widget, and also the 3D transformation is a widget. So you can take your application and nest it under a transform widget, and then everything works as expected. Everything works just fine, but all application is slightly tilted. It's not useful at all. I don't think that anyone have a reasonable use case for this, but it shows you how insanely composable Flutter widgets are. You can combine anything with anything, and Flutter will somehow manage to work no matter what you are trying to do. Another great example of everything is a widget approach is this situation. I have this text in the center of the screen, and for some reason I need to handle a tab event on the text widget, but text doesn't have any on tab handler or callback or I don't know what. So what can I do? Well, there is a widget for that. There is gesture detector. It doesn't paint, it's not visible, but you can use it to wrap anything you want. And gesture detector has on tap, on drag, and on scale. And using gesture detector, you can add interactivity to, again, almost anything. This is something new in Flutter, I would say. I haven't seen it anywhere else. Whenever you have some kind of this problem, there probably is a widget for that. Theme of your material design application is a widget. Text direction on the screen, is it left to right or right to left? That there is a widget for that. So if you run, when you run into trouble, try to find a widget. There's probably one in core library. So you know that you need to study that. You know how to build your user interface using widgets. And now we have to talk about state management. It's a little bit advanced topic, but I think it's quite important to catch it from the very beginning, because I've run into some troubles in my first applications because I didn't know anything about state management. I come from backend development and Angular development on front end. So maybe if you are coming from React, you have some ideas how to manage state in these situations, but I did not, and it cost me a few extra hours. So I would say that state management is definitely one of 3 important pillars of Flutter development, at least at the beginning. So we spend a lot of time talking about the widgets. Rightfully so, widgets are awesome and important, and we need to talk a little bit about the state. When you are developing your Flutter application, you are building your own widgets, your own components, your own Lego bricks. In general, you have these 2 options: stateless widget and stateful widget. Stateless widget is quite straightforward. Everything is set in constructor, everything is final. Stateless widget is completely immutable. It just builds and it's done. Stateful widget is more complicated because it's made of 2 parts. It's a widget, very simple widget, and it's state. In this case, for example, we have this centered text in the state of our stateful widget. What is important? You can change the state in this situation. You cannot change the widget, but you can change the state. You can add this method, for example, set text, which changes centered text to some new text. Everything you do, you have to do it in set state method, because that will notify Flutter that the state has changed somehow, and that you need to rebuild your user interface. So Flutter will call your build function. It will destroy all unused widgets, and you will build your widget tree again with all changes you need to see. And the state of the stateful widget will survive. So that's why it's stateful, because state will survive these iterations. What are these 2 widgets good for? Well, stateless widget, use it to create labels, I don't know, badges, some nice panels or field sets, some reusable pieces of design without some, I don't know, without some interactivity maybe. That's stateless widget. It doesn't have any state, it just builds itself and it's done. Stateful widget, everything animated is stateful, everything interactive is probably stateful. For example, if you need some very special custom button, you will use stateful widget because button is pressed and it might be disabled and so on. But where you should put state of your application, data on the screen, or your user information about your user, should you put it into some stateful widget and use it from there? Well, I wouldn't recommend it. It can be done, but it can get quite messy quite quickly. Imagine something, I would say even something simple like this. I have this screen with some header and some information about the content and maybe some content editor. And when a user changes the content somehow, I need to notify the content info and screen header must be rebuilt. It can be done using some sophisticated network of handlers and listeners and callbacks, but that can escalate in a very unpleasant way. So I would recommend from the very beginning, and it was favorite package in the in the survey, use, for example, provider. There are other possibilities for state management. Provider is a widget. It serves as a holder of your state object. So my user, this information about my user, and you can use it in your widget tree, and it doesn't paint, it just sits there. And anywhere in the tree below, you can ask for my user, ask for the username, and render it on the screen, even inside a stateless widget. And the provider will make sure that your parts of the widget tree will be rebuilt when the user changes. So this is quite easy to understand, easy to use, and definitely easy to maintain. So I would strongly recommend use some more sophisticated state management technique. Even it's not from the Flutter SDK, it's third-party package. So use it from the very beginning and learn how to manage your state properly. Well, that's kind of it. I would say these three main topics is something you should concentrate at the beginning of your Flutter career. Learn Dart, familiarize yourself with different widgets in Flutter SDK, and learn a little bit about state management of your Flutter application. So now, if you will, please repeat after me. I use Dart to build my UI from widgets, and I manage the state of my application in a tidy manner. I am a Flutter developer, and that's how you become Flutter developer. Just for a good measure, I would like to mention my favorite packages. Definitely provider. If you are used to some kind of dependency injection, which I am from Java, you don't have it in Flutter. It doesn't make any sense in immutable world. There is no way how to inject something into existing widget. So you can use, for example, Gedit package. It's quite easy, again, easy to use service locator. I must recommend E69N for internationalization and localization, mostly because it's my own package. I must say this, that I know the author, he's a stand-up guy. E69N is very useful, give it a try. And maybe later, I use build value, so maybe later try it too. It's maybe a little complicated at first sight, but it will help you build your model objects. It will help you with serialization and tasks like that. So this is how you become a Flutter developer according to Tomucha. And now if we have any questions.
Amazing. Amazing talk. Okay, we have the first question. What is the limitation of Flutter comparing to the native app?
I would say always use Flutter. But when you need to closely talk to the hardware, for example, you are building some AR application, maybe it's not the best idea to use Flutter for that. But most of applications are based on user experience, not on some hardware capabilities. And user experience, it's much more easy to achieve something quite catchy and easy to navigate in Flutter, I would say, than in native applications. It makes sense because Flutter is new and native frameworks are quite old. So when they started, we didn't even know what we want from those touchscreen devices. So it's time to burn the bridges and start from scratch, in my opinion. Embrace Flutter.
Okay, and we have time for like one, maybe two questions. Can you make a Flutter app run more than 16 FPS? Is it possible?
Well, it depends on hardware. Some iPads, I believe, run 120 already. I'm more Android user, so I don't have much experience with iPad. But yes, you can. If hardware allows it, Flutter will run 120.
And maybe the last question, what's your personal view on the current Flutter market?
It's growing, definitely. Yesterday, someone asked me if I can recommend any Flutter developer. I did not recommend anyone, but I think that jobs are definitely opening. You can start using Flutter as a hobby project, which I did. So if you have some pet project, something you want to create, if you have some great idea how to get quite rich quite quickly, then use Flutter after work as a hobby.
Nice. And maybe the very last question. How long do you code in Flutter?
Long before Flutter, because I used Dart on web, and I use it from the very beginning, I would say. So I don't know, 5 years, maybe more, even, I don't know, for a long time. More.
Okay.
More.
Amazing. Thank you for your time and amazing presentation.
Yeah, I tried. Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, okay. Thanks. Thanks for joining us. And the next speaker is Dominik. Dominik is a crazy guy. He codes in many languages, for example, Flutter, he uses Angular, React, or Firebase. And actually, he's Firebase GDE and best macarona dancer in the world. Hi, Dominik.
Hey. How are you
How are
doing?
you today?
Good. It's hotter here, but fine.
Actually, it's super hot here. Okay, Dominik, we will be talking about the Firebase and Flutter. So the stage is yours.
Okay, thank you. Hello everyone, welcome to the talk called Rocket Speed Production with Firebase and Flutter. Today we will talk about using Firebase in your app and getting out to the public users as quickly as possible. Thanks to the Firebase, it's easy, and thanks to the Flutter too. I will try to showcase most of the features that Firebase is providing and how you can use them. And as has been said at the start, Firebase is one of the most likable libraries from Flutter. And I like that because I saw a lot of Firebase or Flutter apps that use Firebase, and it's very cool. And I think using these two can make your app very useful, and you can get it very quickly to the production. As it has been said, I'm Dominik. I'm Firebase GD. I'm also organizer at GDG Austria and works as a software engineer at Profig and Extended. Okay. First question that can come into your mind is, what is Firebase? Firebase is a service provided by Google. Instead, call it backend as a service. It started as a real-time database, small startup, and Google later acquired it, and now it's mostly focusing on helping app teams succeed. I'm one of those. For example, we're using Firebase in Extended, and it helped us a lot. For example, by authentication and database is very useful. I will showcase these two features later on. You have to think about Firebase as your API. You don't need any extra layer on top of it. You don't need to build any extra layer. And you just connect your Firebase to your app, your SDK, and you have it. You have Firebase, you have all the Firebase features, and it's easy to use. Firebase have many features. There are three categories. First is development, second is analytics, and third is growing business. As you can see, there is plenty of features, and Firebase is still growing. Firebase team is very helpful, and they are trying to improve their features, and they are trying to add new features that developers need. I think the best features for me, because I'm a developer, I don't much care about analytics, are those on the left, the building behind or below the build better apps. It's Firestore, ML Kit, or now it's Firebase ML, Cloud Function, Authentication, Hosting, and Cloud Storage, and Real-Time Database. Real-Time Database is the feature that was at the start of the Firebase. It's still there. You can use it. There's second database called Cloud Firestore. I will talk about it later. And by my opinion, it's better in some cases, of course. But as you can see, there's also plenty of feature for I can say for marketing team or any managers. They can look how many user is using it. You can also track the performances of your app and test your app in the Firebase. First thing, Flutter loves Firebase. It's easy to set up and more easy to use. With this stack, you can grow quickly and not worry about service or framework if it's going to handle that. It will. It's easy. Both of them are ready to fire to production and target the huge audience. I saw app, I think it was 2 years ago, on the Flutter conference that had like virtual users, like 2 million virtual users, and Firebase still responded quickly as for 100 users. It's easy. You can focus just on improving your app and developing new great features like some hot dog or not hot dog app. I will start with the development. Almost every app in these days needs authentication. For better user interaction, you want to store data for the user, and you want to track him or target some marketing stuff for him. Firebase got your back for that. Firebase is providing authentication that has email and password authentication built-in. It also supports Auth0, Auth2, and already has many auth providers connected, like Google. Of course, it's a Google thing. You need Google authentication there, but also Facebook, GitHub, Apple. For example, if you're releasing some authentication thing on the Apple side, there are rules that your app needs Apple login. Now with the Firebase, you can easily implement it, and don't worry about things about that and spending so much time on implementing that. For many of those, it already has pre-built UIs that you can implement. Take, for example, registration. Oh, okay. For example, registration. You just create the Firebase instance there, and create Firebase instance, and you could just call create user with email and password in Firebase. Firebase will store that the user for you. It will create custom UID for him, and you can later focus on targeting this user. More complex example is Google authentication. We can call Google sign-in library to show the Google Auth UI. You probably saw that in many apps. It's the UI that you first selecting the Google user, later probably password, or two-step authentication. And after that, Google sign-in will respond back. It will respond back, and you store these credentials to Firebase. In 5 lines, or 6 lines in this case, or you can count it as 4 lines, we are done. We have Google authentication done, and we don't have to worry about anything else. Or other providers like Facebook, Apple, and other, there are like 10 of them, are almost easy, like almost same or easier than this. Next thing that we need is database. Of course, where you can store data. You can store data in your app, in his cache on his mobile phone, but it is not good. You want to respond with the server and have some database for him. Firebase is providing 2 options, as I said. First one is real-time database, and second one is Firestore. Real-time database was the older one. It's a huge JSON tree. It's not built for a huge amount of data stored there, and not for the huge amount of user that is using it. It's built for the responding quickly, and you're paying for the benefit there. Firestore is newer, stronger, and definitely in most cases better option. And it's a NoSQL database where you store data as a collection of documents. Each document can handle like 1 megabyte of data. Someone from Firebase team said that it's like whole Lord of the Rings trilogy. I can't imagine storing something like that in the database, but you can do it. Hit me on the Twitter if you're gonna do it. It's horizontally scaled and strongly indexed. That means that if your app hits thousands of users, even more, like millions, your database will still answer on some inquiries quickly as at the start and without any delay. How you can imagine how it looks like in the database? This is the schema of your database probably. You have some users on top. That's a collection of the users. In this case, it's some workout app. Users have their workouts, and workouts is another collection, and workouts have documents that have another collections with their history. First thing that you need to think about, the data or sub-collection are nested. If you download one document, you don't download sub-collection. You need to go do another call to your database. But it's easy to use, as I said, and Firebase will respond you quickly in those 2 calls. And I think you will be surprised how quick it is. How to implement it? Easy. you create Firestone instance, or just call it. You find the path that you want to change. In this case, it's some user, his images, and image ID. The ID of the document can be auto-created by the Firebase. In this case, I set it by myself. It's not needed. Firebase can create it by yourself. And the set data there, I just set the title of the image. That's it. I don't know why I did it, or maybe more data would be more helpful, but that's it. And data loading or data downloading, it's more better to say. And again, you create Firestone instance, a collection of user images. I ordered them by create date. Oh, I have like a mistake there, because in the last time I didn't created any create date field. As you can see, there is no create date field, but there is mistake. But you can probably imagine that there is create date thing in that document. And I will limit that call to just 5 documents. And I'm saying to Firebase, hey, return me 5 last snapshots. Great on that is that Firebase can create listener for that. And you will be notified about any changes that are happening on selected documents. In this case, if new image would be uploaded, I will get always 5 latest images. You can like imagine that as a Firebase as an Instagram feed. There is Instagram photo feed, and there are latest images shown. And in this case, I will always get 5 latest images without any code changes. Firebase will notify me and download the new document if the new document was created in the database with the create date with the latest create date. Next up is storage. You don't want to just store data. You want to store some files. In this case, cloud storage comes in. It's an object storage service where you store data in buckets, and it has high scalability and high availability. You can store there pretty much any file that you want. We can do some uploading image. What do you think? Like I already shown some cases of the code that Instagram can have, and in this case, we have uploading an image. First, I will pick a file. I will get image from my gallery. I will get the file, and I will create some storage reference in my cloud storage. It's under the user ID and his images. And I will create upload task that will put file in that storage. Great on that is that storage task is returning you progress of uploading, and you can create, for example, progress bar thanks to that. You just create 4 lines. Just created 4 lines of in your code, and you have all the things already done. Probably you need some permission thing built before that, but that's it. Firebase again is handling your files. It's storing for you in global scale, and it has high availability. You probably will get the same speed image in America as in Europe, as in Asia. Okay, we are pretty much done on the development part. There are more development parts, but we are going to analytics. I am not good analytics guy. I am, as probably heard from the Matej, I'm more developer. That I usually don't worry about analytics, but there are some cool features that Firebase is providing. First thing is Google Analytics. It's an app measurement solution. You probably heard of it on website. You can connect it to your app and track app usage and app engagement. How you can implement it? Thanks to a second or another Firebase GDE that created those lines, because I already implemented by myself. It was worse. It was worse than that. But in this case, it's easy. You just import two Firebase libraries, create Firebase Analytics instance, and you're just calling analytics before you're running app. And after that, what is happening? You are tracking all the users that are using your app. You have nice map where is your app mostly using. In this case, it's in India. Sometimes it's like that. Even my app is from Czech Republic. But you know how many users is using it in time. It's refreshing like every few seconds. And you know the top location and things like that. You have also some user snapshots. You can target, for example, just the users from the UK, just the users from the US. You can target users just from the, for example, from Europe. Another analytic thing, it's performance monitoring. You want to track how your app is going, how it's performant. And with performance monitoring that Firebase is providing, you can easily track your app performance issues. How you can track it? You have some game, you implemented some game in Flutter. I love those, like 2D things or 2D games in the Flutter. I love those. I would love to see more of them because I think Flutter is good for that. But that's my opinion. You just import the Firebase performance library. You create new trace. In this case, it's called load game. You start tracking. You will do some cool stuff for preparing your game, and after it, you stop your checking. And that time will be stored in the Firebase, and you can see how you're doing in the timeline. For example, last month my games was loaded in the 5 seconds. Now it's in 15 seconds. What's happening there? What's in the latest updates? If someone like did something wrong. Last thing, I think it's last thing that I wanted to showcase. As I said, there is plenty of features. We would probably spend so much time in this presentation if I wanted to showcase all the features. I just wanted to show you a few. The last one is Firebase Crashlytics. Firebase joined with the Crashlytics teams. It was called, I don't know, I forgot the name of the company that was behind the Crashlytics, but don't worry about it now. It's under Firebase. You can you have real-time crash reporter for your app. Again, it's easy to implement. You just import the library from the Firebase, create a Crashlytic instance. In this case, I am also tracking the developer crashes. You don't want them probably in the later, or have some like have there some switch for that. You will track Flutter error and send it to the Crashlytics as a record, as a Flutter error record. And later, I'm just running the app. And how it's looking, you have nice graphs in your Firebase, how many crashes are there, how many users are affected by that. You have also the lines or the lines of your code where it's happening, why it's happening, and how many users obtain that event. you probably need that in the production, because sometimes somebody push wrong code and you want to track it, and you want to get to the 100% crash-free users. Oh, why did it twice? Thanks. Thanks everybody for listening me for last 20 minutes. I like to listen to my laptop, and I hope that you enjoyed my talk, and I'm ready for fiery questions.
Amazing. Thank you. We have a ton of questions here, so I guess we can start with the first one. Which crash reporting should I use? The one is like Sentry or Sentry.io, mentioned by Google at Flutter.dev, or the Firebase crash analytics.
Oh, okay. The first one is tracking. It's tracking Flutter errors better. You can use both of them. I like Firebase. I would like to go for the Crashlytics, but there is some limitation of both sides. Something is better in the tracking of how many users are affected by there and things like that. Second one is better in the tracking of bad code.
Okay. The next question is, can we, I'll make this like this. Okay. When updating a document in Firestore, and then Firestore notifies all the listeners of new value, does notifying every listener count as many calls to Firestore?
Yeah, each update of the document that is happening on the client side is counting as a new download. Firestore have pricing that is about reads and writes, and if your new document is downloaded for Firebase or new document with the new changed values, it's counted as a new read.
Okay. And the question, next one is, how does the pricing with Firebase work?
Yep, okay. All the features have their own pricing. There is no pricing on top of the Firebase. You have two plans, free and Blaze plan. Free plan have some limitation. Blaze plan is, of course, unlimited, and you are paying as you go. Each Firebase feature have their own free tier. For example, as I said about the Cloud Firestore, it have a limitation like 50,000 reads per day. More than that, you are paying for that, like, I don't know, 8 cents or something like that, 8 cents per 1,000 reads. But you have free tier for your development, and that's it.
Perfect. Can we customize the cloud messaging outside the console, like do it programmably?
Yes, you can. You can do it. You can do it via SDK that is providing Firebase, the Firebase admin SDK. I hope so. I think, yeah. I never actually played much with the cloud messaging, to be honest, but I think it's you can update it programmatically.
Okay. And with cloud functions, can you stream data from a collection to the app via query? This is possible, but within but with cloud functions.
Yeah, cloud function. We call it a cloud function as a backend in the Firebase. It's awesome. You can listen some data changes that are happening in the for example, in the Firestore or cloud storage. If also if new out user was created, it have some like triggers, and you can create some. Now I forgot the name. Some webhook, for example, in case of the cloud functions, that will be called. It's hard to do that. I would love to rather connect to Firestore directly to your Flutter app. As I said on the start, there is no need to create any extra layer on top of your database. There is no need for that. Usually your SDK handled that very well. and you don't need to create extra layer with the cloud functions.
Okay, this sounds for me like rocket science. And the very last question: when you stream a confidential query from a collection, when a new document is added that meets the condition of the query, will it update the stream or listeners?
Yeah. All the listeners are listening with the queries that you put them in. If you for example, listening, I showcased it in my presentation. I have the query, or it wasn't query, but I could create a query if the title is equal something, and five latest documents with the same name, or with the query that will be like with the five latest documents that have same title that is equal to my query will be pushed to my listeners.
Okay, and new question. So it's the very last question.
Okay.
Configure cloud messaging in Flutter is more complicated than on Android?
It's not. I think it's not. If you follow like Firebase libraries or Flutter Fire, I think they are calling it Flutter Fire libraries. I think it's not that hard to implement any of the features from the Firebase. There are some cases that it's not yet supported with Flutter, or it's kind of buggy a little bit. I don't know about all features because I'm not always using all the features, but Flutter team is also awesome about that. They are trying to get Firebase to Flutter developers as quickly as possible. And I think if you follow the instructions that Firebase or Flutter Cloud Messaging Library is providing to you, you will get it very quickly to your app.
Okay, Dominik, thank you for your talk. It was amazing.
Thank you.
I just learned so many new things about the Firebase, and definitely I will continue working with this.
Thank you for inviting, and thank you.
Okay, see ya. And our next speaker is Simon. Simon is one of the developers behind the Flutter study group on Slack. Also, he's a Flutter developer, Go and Android developer as well. And he's one of the organizers behind the Flutter Hackathon 2020, where I also took part in. Unfortunately, I didn't win.
That's
and
right.
If you are a Flutter developer, definitely follow him on Twitter because he has so much cool content there. So, hi, Simon.
Hey, how are you today? I'll say first. Yeah, I'm hot. That's what it is today. Hot.
Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah, I can't wait to get out of this heat at the moment. It's just too hot for me.
Yeah, here's the hot as well. Okay, Simon is gonna talk about the navigation of Flutter. Okay, the stage is yours.
Thank you. So I'm gonna have to forgive me. I'm leaving the windows open, the fans on. It's way too hot to not have that on at the moment. So, welcome to my talk, declarative navigation. We are going to, if my clicker works, talk about GPS system. Only joking. We're not talking about the GPS system. We're talking about the navigator to pager and router API. Thank you for the lovely introduction. So I just put a bit on here, Flutter community lead. I've been helping out with the Flutter community for some time. We also have several community efforts. So I'd like just to bring everyone's attention to that. So there's a Flutter community Medium and a Flutter community GitHub organization where we manage packages and so on. So we're always looking for people to help in terms of managing those packages. So we have some templates on there. Please put your name forward. Happy to review anyone's requests. I've been a CTO of a company I started up with a friend of mine, Dev Angels London. We just basically make apps. So a little free advertisement there for everyone. And you can go follow me on Twitter at DevAngelsLondon. It did start off as a business account. Now it's my personal account. So you may get some jokes and all sorts of things. And I've personally been doing programming for what, 20 years? 11 of that is definitely Android, and a good couple of years now in Flutter. So what happened since my last talk on navigation? So I did a talk in January at Flutter Europe. Thank you for all the organizers of Flutter Europe. That was brilliant. To my chagrin, I did this whole bit about initial route and how it was, how you can do things with it. You can go watch the video. Anyway, it's been removed from the API now. So if you've had any problems trying to use that, that is why it's been removed to support the new Pages API, which we're going to be talking about. And yeah, I don't think I've got any better preparing for talks. So you have to forgive the slides. They will be available after the talk. These new slides, and I've already got a repository up and working that you guys can download and start looking at, as I'll show you in a minute, and we can work through some examples together. If you want to look at the last video and slides, which don't cover what I'm covering today, that covers specifically routes, transitions, the navigation stack, and various other things. You can go, you'll be able to get these slides afterwards and click on that link there for the video and the slides for the last talk. Navigator 2.0. The question is, why do we need another API? And what's wrong with the current one? Well, I mean, the good answer to this is just, if you've ever experienced any problems with the current Navigator API stack that doesn't do what you want, well, then, there's a good reason right there to replace it with something new. If it's not doing what we need, let's make something better. But, all jokes aside, I mean, it's been around since the very beginning. It doesn't really follow the usual sort of declarative paradigms that we now come accustomed to with widgets and so on. So, and the other problem with the current Navigator version 1 is that it's very opinionated in terms of it limits our access. Like, you can't see the history stack, you can't do a lot of things. So with the new Navigator 2 API tries to sort of address these concerns. Yeah, and I think also the key point here to take away from this is also definitely look into the Pages API, and soon the new Router API once it leaves master, so that you can sort of get prepared, because the Flutter team is working on state restoration, and that is all part and parcel of navigation. So that if your app is completely terminated, so they put it in the background, let's say on Android, put it in the background, the system cleans up the processes and shuts down the application. Well, we want it to save the current navigation stack, and then when the app comes back alive again, we want to restore the navigation stack. So it's very important for us to sort of link the Navigator 2.0 stuff with the state restoration. So the new API is broken into 2 bits, and we'll be talking about the Pages API. I've just named it a declarative approach because it really is. So we'll go through some key concepts. So first of all, we'd like to say it is stable. It's currently on the stable branch. So if you're using 1.20, you can start using this immediately today, which is all the more better, because I'm telling you right now, like, brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant. Once you get your head around the initial things, which I'm hoping my talk will help you with, that it will just sort of release you from the complications that the original Navigator sort of gives us. It is to be said that it is an addition to the current Navigator widget, right? So the Pages API changes the way that the Navigator stack works. The Navigator widget takes a new constructor, which is a list of pages. So you think of it just like a stack, right? That takes a list of widgets as children. It now takes a list of pages to be displayed. So a page, which is the new class, you can go find this in the current API documentation, is like a widget. It just provides the configuration for the resulting route. So we'll go into that in a second. So as I said, it acts like a widget. So a page has a contain update method, which compares its runtime type and key. This is very important, because that's the distinction that we make when we're dealing with the widget tree. That when you see them, you say, oh, if it has the same runtime type and key, then it's going to remain on the screen. So this takes us down that declarative approach to UI, to the pages that we display, in terms of if they match, it doesn't have to make any changes, it doesn't pop or push anything from our navigation stack. And a page instance, an instance of a page class, is only job is to store the configuration for the current route when and create the current route when requested. So it very much, think of it very much like the stateful widget, which has a create state method, so that when it needs to create that widget, it calls create state, that then initializes everything. So a page is like that. There's a create route where you can initialize that route, provide parameters, and do anything custom that you feel that you need to. And that create route method is actually called by the navigator itself. The navigator, sorry. So Pages API example. So I just want to provide this. So this is like your ABC simple example of a page. So we have a type parameter. The T here is the return type of the route. So I didn't pass that across to material page route here. That's just inferred. But the key concept here is page extends route settings. So wherever you use route settings before, you can use the page class. And as you can see here on line 13, we actually pass this as the settings for the route that's returned. So that like makes a hard linkage between the route and the page that created it. And as you can see here, we're just storing in this case, we're storing a method that builds the widget, the route. A builder that returns the widgets for the route. And then we pass the naming key across. So here's a good example of it in action. So if our initial route is, let's say, /category5/item/15, on the previous navigation system, if you said that initial route, it would try and create a route for category, a route for 5, a route for item, and a route for 15. And you had no real recourse to kind of override it. And if you did your working around the API, it's not very nice. So with the new approach, we get to create a navigator with a set of pages, and we can decide what those pages are. And in this case, I've created 3 pages. We have a home screen, which is the default /route. Then we have category 5. So those 2 parts of the route are joined together to show a category screen of ID 5. And the same goes for item 15. So in this case, that's an item screen with ID of 15. So something you can see now, do not forget to add the keys. So it's very important. So just like the widget tree, as I said earlier, the way it does the comparisons, it compares the runtime type. In this case, that's my page. They're all the same. So if we didn't have a key in there, if we removed one of those pages, it would not know that the stack had changed, right? And we wouldn't see the transition of your pages. So it's very important to have keys on your pages, okay? And in this case, I use the key factory method to create a value key of string that's just unique enough for this purpose. Okay. So in this situation, I just commented out that last one, item 15. And in this situation, the navigator would see that page is now 2. That item 15 that was there before has now, the item 15, my page at the bottom there, has now been removed. So then it will do the pop animation for us. And we'll pop the route and do the normal thing that we normally expect, which is the way the route pops and notifies and everything else. So, and it animates that. The key thing that we can now do, because we have control of this history, because we have control of the stack, we can do something like this, where we actually comment out somewhere, in this case I'm commenting out, but remove from our list a widget, let's say for category in this instance, and it would remove that screen that's behind the current one without any animation taking place, right? You could do this with the old one, but you'd have to keep a reference to the route. You can do remove route. It is very complicated, and it definitely wasn't designed for that approach. And of course, in this example here, if we were to press the back button, then where item 15 at the bottom is popped, and we return back to the home screen because we've now got rid of category 5, right? So, I think the question here is what happens when we take this to the next step, which is when the navigator pops, how do we remove this the entry for item 15? So that's where this is a new constructor for Navigator. And again, this is in stable branch right now. And we don't really care about any of these details for the old stuff. So we'll just comment those out there. So the key concepts here, we've got pages, which is our page array. And we have on-pop page. And this is how if we want to implement the pages array, we need to implement on-pop page, right? This is basically how the Navigator reports back to us that a route has been popped from the stack. And then we can use that to update our list of pages, remove it, and rebuild the Navigator widget itself. If we didn't do that, then the next time the widget gets rebuilt, it would see that there's a new item called a new page in the bottom, and it would animate it in again. So you would get this back and forth happening, which obviously not what you want. So you need to implement on-pop page and remove the page that it gives you the route for. And I'll explain how we do that in a minute with some examples. So there is, you might draw your eye right now because everyone likes transitions. There's transition delegate on line 10 and 11, which implements a default. This is not what you think. It's nothing to do with animation. Not directly. So this is used by the Navigator to determine what changes in the pages array indicates a push or a pop or an add or a remove. So like I showed you earlier with the set of pages, if we were to insert pages in the middle, right, not at the top, we're not pushing it on top, we put them somewhere in the middle as we change the stack. So you can imagine we could change the entire history stack underneath the current one, or just change them with the current one, it would all change on the screen. But if we change the ones behind, that's an add operation. They're getting added, but they're not being pushed. A push means that they're getting added and again animated. So push and pop are specifically animations. Add and remove are without animations. It's sort of the key concept. But the states that routes go through, there's a huge state diagram somewhere in the documentation which covers a lot of this. But yeah, just keep those concepts in mind. So I just want to get sort of just talk through these points. This is actually, I think, pretty much verbatim from the documentation. The default transition delegate follows these rules. Firstly, all the entered routes are placed on top of the exiting routes if they are at the same location, so same location in the pages array. Secondly, at the topmost route will always transition with an animation transition, obviously because it's the current one that's on the screen. All other routes below either will be completed or added or removed without transition. And the real point of them providing this to us is so that, again, we can customize this behavior, right? So they parameterized it. We can do whatever we want. If we want to create an app that's completely backwards in its navigation or does something crazy or somehow interacts with web views in some fancy way to do back navigation in the web view, we could do all that with this, and there's all sorts of fun things we can do. And finally, reports route update to engine. This is about how it fires stuff back. That itself is not important if you're using the router API, okay? That's only if you just want to use the pages API without the router API. And finally, at the bottom there, I just put the type def in for the pop callback. So you can see we get the route that's being popped, and we get the result of that route. And what we actually want to do is call route did pop result to tell the route that it's been popped now. We'll get more into that in a minute. And just a remark here, as you see, the constructor has both. So you can actually mix and match the old imperative and the new declarative approaches. So your first thought, maybe that's a bit right? However, it does help for a steady migration if you want to migrate parts of your app and still keep some of the old behavior. But importantly, it allows us to keep things like dialogues and pop-up routes. So the way it works is you have your set of pages, and then we'll get to that in a second. So for example, if you were to specify initial route here, the imperative API would call onGenerate initial routes, create those routes, and push them on the stack inside the navigator. On top of those that are generated by the pages. So the pages like your sort of your underlying set of screens, and then anything else is done on top of that. So you can imagine that we show a dialogue, well, that's put on top of the current set of pages in front of the user. Same goes for like a pop-up list or anything like that. These routes are just put on top. So we kind of get to take advantage of both imperative and declarative approaches. Those routes that are not part of the pages list are called pageless routes now. That's the name given to them. Any route that is not backed by a page is a pageless route. Okay, so I know there's a lot to take in, and we're going to go through some examples later, but we're just going to talk briefly about the router API. So I originally wasn't going to do the route. I wasn't going to talk about the router API because it was still being worked on. 4 days ago, it was committed to the master branch. So I've raced to get some semblance of information to you, and we're actually going to try some live examples of this today. So I have to say, this is what I've always wanted from the navigator. So let's see, what is it? So the new route API solves the new requirements that we just saw to rebuild the navigator. It has to be said, though, that you don't have to use navigator anymore. So you can provide your own overlay, whatever set of widgets you want to display your set of pages to the user, or based on routes. That's all up to you now. You can do whatever you want. So we have the freedom that we've always wanted, right? The route API is split into a few key concepts, and we're going to go through each of them. So route information provider. So this is the link between. So first of all, so let me be clear. You have the router API and there's a router widget. So the router widget wraps a navigator widget, right? So it has a build method that returns navigator or any other widget you want. But that router widget requires a few parameters to get started. So in this situation, we want the route information provider. And what that does is that interacts with the operating system to let us know, well, first of all, so we can let the operating system know the current route. So if we navigate inside the application, so the user presses a button, we can tell the operating system, hey, we're now on this new page, change the URL. And that's in fact what happens on Flutter Web. So that the URL provided from this goes and changes the URL in the address bar using the HTML5 history API, state API, whatever it's called. However, you do not have to be concerned with this. So the platform provides the framework provides a default implementation called Platform Route Information Provider. And the key behind this, though, is that you just don't have to deal with it, right? So it's only if you want to do some very custom behavior, but again, they're bringing the customizability, they're bringing that stuff to us that we've always wanted, yeah? So again, there might be lots of concepts here, but once you understand the new concepts, how they interact, there's hardly any code to actually implement in them. Another point to mention here is the router widget can be nested. So like nested navigators, again, we don't have to use navigator, but you can have nested routers and they can interact. Again, you would have a provider on your nested one that provides, obviously not the system level route, but the sub route, right? That's how you can sort of provide a nested routing behavior. So in that situation, you want to make sure that if you're using a nested one, then you want to provide null. This parameter is null. Right. Anyway, and just a key point that default one works the same way that we've experienced in the Navigator 1 API, and that is it uses widgets binding observer to observe the current widgets binding. That's one of the base classes of Flutter to monitor the did push, did pop state of the UI, so that we can know when the operating system wants to push or pop a route. So you press the back button, for instance. Moving on. So then we have route information parser. So route information parser. Now, again, all these new classes. I know it's a lot, but we're going to go through them in a minute. You'll see them in code. So don't worry too much. Route information parser. It takes what we previously called the route name. They're now called this route information because it can provide more stuff than just the name. But think of it as the route name. So we're taking like this string of whatever we got as our initial route, and we convert that into an internal custom model of our choosing. So we can have any object we like, right? That represents those parameters and parameterizes those things. So think it as like the current state of the route. So we're going to get back to the route. The route delegate's got quite a few callbacks and the way it behaves, and we'll look at that in the code. But this is where the magic happens. So like a custom painter or one of the other things, you provided custom multi-channel layout, whatever, you provide a delegate, which provides the callbacks and functionality that the router needs to perform its base set of logic. So the reason why the original Navigate 2.0 ticket has been closed, right? And that's been closed because they provided all the necessary functionality to use the new Navigator API now in master branch. However, what we're missing right now, and they've opened up a new ticket linked to the old one, is some default implementations, or some, not default's the wrong word, some interesting implementations of the route delegate. So I encourage you all, once this talk is over, go experiment, see what you can play around with, because they want your feedback, right? The Flutter team want the feedback from the community to know what they should be building and what helping us build great apps, right? So have a look, have an experiment, make your remarks, use the ticket. I'll put the ticket ID up on the screen at the end. And finally, it has a back button dispatcher. So I haven't played around with this yet. The back button dispatcher allows you to nest them. So it essentially takes the place of will pop scope using routers. So this allows us to kind of nest that back button and have nested routers all with nice back button behavior linked together. So this is the state diagram, I guess. I've forgotten the name for these things. Hang on. That's about flowchart. I know, whatever. Anyway, so as you can see here, when we get the initial route or new intents or new routes getting passed through, they go through the route name provider, which creates that custom model, which converts essentially into the external operating system to our parser. The parser then receives that string, the route name string, and converts into a custom model. And then that gets passed to the route delegate with either set initial route or set new route callbacks. The set initial route callback is obviously used when we have the initial route being passed in, so we can perform whatever logic we want. Fire off a task to go check to see if there's new notifications, who knows what. And obviously set new route, overriding that. And again, the back button is pressed. We go through the back button dispatcher chain, and then that goes to popping a route again through the router delegate. Now, the key point here, again, so it's declarative, right? So you have to stop thinking about that kind of imperative approach of like, I'm going to push and pop stuff, right? The idea is you change your app state, right? So you can imagine that you change a variable, and that means, oh, the user is now logged out. So now your new set of pages is the logged out view, instead of the logged in view. So your pages list can almost represent your app state, right? So that's what this kind of notion of what the router delegate does. It based on the app state, it changes the set of pages that are going to be sent over to the navigator, right? And once those changes are made, it then does a rebuild. The router widget rebuilds and calls the build function of our delegate and obtains the latest set of pages and the navigator widget. So an example of that actually in use is right here. So the user taps a button. The tap handler modifies the state, so that can go off to our app state and, I don't know, remove something or anything you like, Boolean. You can have your own stack of pages, which I'll show you in a minute, or you can do whatever you want. Again, customizability being the key. Then that then notifies the router that those things have changed it's a standard change notifier interface. So just do notify listeners. That then tells it to rebuild the UI, rebuild the navigator with a new set of pages, and then the pages are going to change, right? The routes are going to change. So that's kind of like the flow. And it's a very similar flow that we see with all of that. Anything else that you've done in Flutter where you might press a button and something occurs. This also gives us, I think probably many of us, I know I have in the past, have sort of come up with those problems where you want to push or pop a page. And because it's a command that you issue during a point in time, it says you can't do this right now because you're in the middle of doing a rebuild or some other change. And of course, that kind of creates a circuit dependency in that one build depends on another build that depends on another build. So you do like a schedule microtask or add post state callback or something like that to say, make the navigation change after the current build is finished. So what we're actually doing here is, because we're modifying the app state, that build process becomes part of that flow of changing widgets now. So you don't get that kind of out of order execution. So so this is what you see on the right hand side is the new Material App Router constructor. I mean, Material App itself has lots of parameters, so we're gonna let's comment out the ones that we don't care about right now. And as you can see, we're left with the same 4 that the router widget uses. So provider, parser, delegate, and dispatcher. And there they are there. Again, so these are just passed on to the router. And then the router is used in place of a navigator widget inside the Material App. So where Material App, actually underlying Material App is widgets app, but basically instead of using a navigator, it now uses a router. And it's up to you to provide a navigator widget configured however you want inside of your router delegate. So I know that was a lot of information to sort of cram into like half an hour. So what we're going to do now, we're going to sort of drop away from this, hopefully. And if anyone wants the current code that we're going to be looking at, I will drop this, I guess, in the live chat somewhere, I guess. There you go. I don't know if that gets posted. I'm sure someone can post it. Yeah. I'm sure one of our admins can post it in the chat, so you guys can check it out if you want. This is literally the code that we're going to be looking at right now, and we're going to start running it. So I've put myself in presentation mode here, so this is going to take us a second to kind of work through. I do not want to run the router. Well, let's I see what I'll do. I'll walk you through the pages example first, right? Hopefully that's big enough for everyone. So as you can see here, this is pretty much what you saw on the slides, right? So we have a set of pages right here. And then the key point here is I'm just using this is, again, a quick example. I would not recommend you build it this way, but I'm using instead of a home widget, I'm using a will pop scope. And inside that, I'm calling the maybe pop on my navigator. I'm providing my own navigator with my set of pages and my on pop page function. And as you can see here, this is essentially my state is a set of pages. That is my stack. And then we remove, when you do pop, we take the route name, the route settings, which is the page, remember, and we remove that from our set of pages, and then we tell the route that it did pop, right? So this again satisfies that first point that we need to make sure that the page set is updated when the route's popped. Again, the key point here is that the way that you do this is completely up to you. So the framework is giving you the freedom and not giving the specifics. And that's why it's very important that the next step in Navigator 2 is to provide some, default is the wrong word, but some go-to use cases, common use cases that we all want from the new API, right? Again, maybe something like this, where we could like parcel this up into a common use case. And there's our my page from the example that we gave earlier, followed by some simple home page, category page, and item page with some colors. So item page is blue, category page is green, and home screen is red. So if we run this, I just run the wrong one again because I'm super clever. Yeah. I should have gone through that whilst I was talking about it. Okay, so we're waiting for Gradle now, and hopefully the streaming is not going to slow Gradle down too much. Hope everyone's enjoying themselves and finding what I'm talking about interesting. All right, so here we go. So, yay, we have our item 15, which again, if you notice, like when we start our app up, that's it. We're not providing an initial route. It's just a set of pages. So that's our declared state. We've decided that this is our initial state that we want to start the app on. A good example of reason why this is very important is things like when you're dealing with push notifications, right? You deal with a push, and maybe a push implicitly changes the state of our pages, or maybe you tap on a notification outside the app, and when you launch, you want it to display a certain page within the app. These kind of things become really easy to do. So let's well, we're running this now. So if I hit the back button and everything goes right, there we go. So what just happened is it ran, it wants to pop the route. So Navigator saw that we were using the Pages API and on pop page, called our function. We then remove it from our set of pages. That then pops the route, which starts the animation process and does lots of other things. And because we've removed this and we called set state, now we're left with these 2 pages alone, right, in this array. So then when the widget gets rebuilt again, it will build, and lo and behold, pages will only have those 2 items in it. Yeah, and again, I can hit back again, and we're back to the home screen. Simple enough. We'll take questions on this, so please, pardon me, feel free to pick my brains on this afterwards. I think the more interesting one is the router stuff, which I really wanted to show you guys. So we're going to dig in deep. I'm thinking that given the amount of time that we have, I would like to maybe see if we can rustle together a quick example. I don't know, maybe using maybe a quick example of a store or something where we can have some like detail pages, some item pages, and handle the route changes that way. But the example's here, so we're going to run that example and we're going to give it a go. So again, let's run our router example while that's building in Gradle. While it's building on Gradle, we're going to say, I'll talk you through this. So first of all, oh, wow, that's great. Right, we'll come back to the example in a second. Yeah, we'll come back to the example in a second. So you can see here we're using Material App Router, and now the only 2 parameters I'm providing are a parser and a delegate, right? The reason why I'm passing the delegate as a variable is because my delegate actually holds my state for my stack, which we'll get to in a second. And what I've decided to do, just for a laugh, and this again is about if you wanted to migrate and transition, I've provided an on-generate route, which is the sort of the old way through my route delegate to build the routes for the screen. Why not? We can remove this in a second, and we can push it as a separate commit or something, and we can see how it looks. So, and as you can see here, the very, very basic example of a parser is really simple. So in this case, my custom model, because I'm really, really complicated about this, is just a string, right? As a good example, it's a string, but the key, again, I can't say this enough. The key concept here is that you can provide any model you like. So, you know, if you take that initial route information, by the way, route information is getting prepared to have not just the path, the initial path, which is what they call location now, but also state. And you can read about this, I'm sure, soon. But this allows us to provide that state of like scroll positions and various other things for our current sort of page route. So again, if the user comes back and they were previously filling out a form, we'll have those form fields all there, that when we restore our navigation stack, we can have all the fields filled in still. I've lost where I was in my code. Lucky me. Alt-1, that's a good tip. Right. So in this situation, okay, again, they use a future, which is quite nice, which means you can do some states, some asynchronous things, maybe look at an API or some other various thing you want. In this case, obviously, the most optimal, fastest solution is to use a synchronous future. So we use a synchronous future, and we just return the location. So I'm just taking the route name and saying that is my that is the state. That is all the state information I need to bring back my state, my route. I'm using it's an example, right? I wouldn't recommend that, but this is a good example. And then again, restore. So when we want to come back, it can say just create new route information with a location, which is this is my custom configuration. Remember, this is not just the platforms only giving us a string because that's why I said I need, right? So that's restoring a route information from my string. So here's the delegate. So delegates, they can get quite complicated. And I do want to just point out, this is the way you want to construct your delegate at the top here. So it's whatever class your delegate is, extends router delegate of your custom model. And then if you want to use the navigator's pop interface, then you want to add pop navigator router delegate mix in those string. It's a mouthful. And then interesting enough, we do another mix in. So we're essentially doing a diamond here, a diamond class, and we're mixing in a change notifier. That's because router delegate, which we're going to look into right now, extends listenable. So the change notifier provider gives us that. As you can, I'll walk you through this interface here, and then we'll see how we've implemented it. So first of all, we have set initial route, which by default just calls set new route path, because most of the time the one and paths are the same. The point of having this method in here, though, is so that you can override that behavior, right? And which I can show you what we can do in a minute. And then we've got pop route. Again, when the backbone dispatcher note tells us that we need to pop the current route at the top, then that's the function that needs to perform the edits and the changes to do that. Get the current information. That tells us to return back our current model for the current state. And finally, we have a build function, which returns, in this case, we're going to return a navigator. And again, it recommends us here to use that mixing I was telling you about. I mean, there's 4 or 5 functions. It's not overly complicated. I think it's just that kind of expectation, maybe. So what we've got here is our stack, our marvelous, really complicated, highly functional stack of strings. I'll explain why we have this static of method in a minute. We'll get there. So we have a stack of string. That's going to be our stack of pages, essentially. Our stack of remember, string here is our model, which is data only, right? So this is just our visualization of what the stack is. This is our model. Again, we can provide that to, that could be a set of pages. We could also do have multiple model types for that all, and have one base type that declare that the parameters for different pages. We can really customize it. It's very important you understand it. Anyway, so when you use the pop navigator router and delegate mixin, we have to have a navigator key. So this override here is for that navigator key. This allows us obviously to control the stack of the navigator, the history stack. Current configuration, simple implementation. If our stack is not empty, then return back the last one that's on top. That gets us the current one that we're seeing in front of the user. Otherwise, there's nothing in the stack, so we return null. If we want to get to the stack outside of our router delegate, it's very important that we make that unmodifiable, because if that stack is modified, we need to rebuild our router will need to rebuild its children, in this case, a navigator. So we don't want that stack to be altered outside of this class. So that's encapsulation. So in this case, I provided my own. So just like the original navigator, I provided my own 2 sets of functions. My 2 functions here, which is push with a new route, and just adds it to the end of the stack and notifies that it needs to be rebuilt and rebuild all those pages. And again, the same thing goes for remove. We're just saying remove and then notify that we need to change. There's our initial router. Initial route configuration. We'll have a play around with that in a minute. New route path again. Remember, this is not us pushing or popping or manipulating our stack, because that's up to us now, right? We're not using the navigator to do that, although you still can. This is more about that the operating system has detected that there's a new route. So if you just want to clear the entire stack and rebuild the entire set of things from our configuration. Remember, I'm using a string, but that can be whatever you want. So in this case, we just clear and add that to the stack, single entry point, and we just do a synchronous void. And this is just so that we, again, if we want to make this asynchronous, we can. And then our on-pop page, which again is from the navigator, and this basically tells us, this basically says, did we, is our stack not empty? Is the last one on the stack the current one we're trying to pop? If it is, remove it from the stack and notify the listeners. We could just say, like, I mean, from my use case here, I'm thinking that you always want the latest one if you're going to do pop, and if the navigator pops something that is a pageless route, then we don't, obviously it's not going to match. So, but anyway, and then we've got a little print statement here for debugging, which we'll get to in a minute, so you can see what's actually happening. In this case, it says gives our delegate, and then the stack follows. In fact, you know what? I'm going to say, just do that. Wait a minute. Just for funsies. There we go. My router delegate, the ID dot stack is a slash right now. So we have our opening slash route. Again, we're providing our navigator. So build, when build is called, we're providing our navigate widget. Again, any widgets we like, we could wrap this. We could put some nice fancy thing. I mean, here again, let me be clear. We could now wrap the navigator with a stack to provide like a pop-down notification when a push message comes in. So we get a push message come in, we update our router goes, okay, I need to rebuild, does notify listeners. And now we can display a pop-up notification above our navigator, and will persist even if you change the pages that's behind. Again, you can see here, for example, we just go around, we just loop over our stack and add my page, which we showed earlier with key name. Sorry, this is a new my page. Be clear about this. Interesting enough, I passed across this route factory because I just wanted to make it sort of backwards compatible and show you how you might migrate. In this case, I'm passing over a route factory, which is our on-generate route. And as you can see, here is an implementation of a page, which essentially just has a route factory. So there's not anything to this, right? It doesn't do anything with widgets or anything like that. However, obviously, as I said before, this is just very generic. We can actually have pages as our state. We could push a page with a hard-coded widget in there for whatever screen we want. There's lots of variations that we can do here. And then what we see below is the default homepage widget that you can see here, the scaffold. That's the starting thing. And all I've done is I've made the counter static. So when we press the plus button, we have multiple routes. The counter increments over those routes. And then I've just created 3 callbacks for the 3 action buttons you see below. So we have show dialog, and this is just to show that you can just use the standard navigator behaviors and things that we'd used before. We can use the navigator just like we would do before. Like we can just do show dialog and it will work, even though we're using the Pages API and so on. Remove last, which is our little delete trash can here. Now this is the key. So anywhere in my hierarchy now, below obviously the route, the material app, in this case the router, I can now do material route delegate of, because this is that static function I made earlier. Here it is. And that does router.of and gets my delegate back. Obviously, I could go ahead and use the parser to dispatch any of the parameters. In this case, I'm going to call the delegate. And where was I? Scroll back down. Oops. In this case, I get the stack and say, well, if the stack is greater than 2, then I'm going to remove the one behind the current one. So I'm going to remove the last, but I can't remember the name of that is, but yeah, the one before the last one. And then again, increment sets that counter, great. And then each time we increment, we're going to push a new route name. In this case, instead of doing like /ABC, I'm literally just doing route and a counter. Again, the names themselves don't have any. We don't have that kind of mapping of name to page, although we can. right? To be clear. So what you see here, again, is the standard thing, scaffold with a name, with a counter, and there's our 3 buttons. There's nothing to it. That's the entire example. So let's give it a go. So first of all, let's hit plus. And I'm going to see if I can make this bigger than the bottom here for you. So as you can see, it's added route 1, and we've got the back icon at the top, just like we did before, right? And to be clear, that's done push. Let's run this push method here. Push is added to our custom stack array and called notify listeners. That tells the router to rebuild the widget, and will come down to here, return a new navigator with a set of pages now with our new page being represented. Yeah. So again, I can hit plus, and there's page 2 and page 3, and you can see there's our route, there's our initial page, route 1, route 2, route 3. Now if I hit delete, nothing changed on the screen. We're still on route 3. However, what we've done is we've removed route 2 from our history stack, something that would have been very difficult to do with the previous API. If I press delete again, oh, wrong button. I'll press delete over here. And then you can see now we've got slash and route 3. So if I hit back, I'm going straight back to my root route. I haven't had to go through those intermediate steps, because I can now make the choice to you know, so I push these again. So in this case, now I've got 6 and 7. If I press the delete button, I'm getting rid of 6. And if I hit back from 7, I'm back to 5. Right? You can make the changes to the navigation stack however you want now, right? So there are very complex behaviors that you get with certain apps, and this is why this is very powerful. It really takes Flutter to the next level. And again, as I showed, you can press this button, which shows a dialog, and that dialog, if you notice, has not updated our stack, right? We haven't got a print, it hasn't rebuilt the navigator. This is just portrayed on top of the current set of pages. Now, if we wanted to, we could add another page. It would be added behind this. It would be added behind this, but on top of the other page, right? Anyway, so where do we want to go from here? First of all, I guess, what's our time? Do we want to answer some questions, or do we want to let's have a look.
Actually, we can go for the questions because we have like a ton of them.
Oh, sure. We can go for some questions.
Okay. The first question is, I need to get a GPS position every 10 minutes on my app, even if it's closed. Can I do this with Flutter, or do I need some integration with Kotlin?
Well, I was hoping for actual route navigation questions, but we'll go with normal navigation since I made the joke. No, you're not going to do that. So it used to be possible, but in the new versions of Android and so on, they restrict background access to GPS positioning. You can do it with, if on Android, I can tell you can do it with, you have the you install yourself as an admin app, which has higher permissions. But again, the user needs to provide the extra set of security roles and so on. Yeah.
Okay. And what is the difference between page and route?
Okay. So the difference between page and route. So a route is actually what you, it holds the state of where it is in terms of transition and other things. It binds everything together. So a route is what manages the state of what you see on the screen. Whereas page is, I guess, but the best way to say it is route is the mutable state. That's the current set of variables that declare what's going to happen on the screen. Whereas page is immutable. It's this is how I want to create a route. So it's the initial set of configuration for a route. Hopefully that helps.
Yeah, okay. And what is the use of the key property? Is it important?
The key property, do we have any context on that at all?
No, we don't.
Okay, so I'm going to assume, well, we'll talk about the 2 ones I've shown. So one is on the page. The key property is there for, I think I did speak about this a little bit, I'll go over it again. That's there so that we can differentiate. So the navigator can tell two different pages apart. The key makes it unique. So like a key in real life is quite unique. The key in the app is unique. So based on this runtime type and key is now unique. And this is how Flutter sees widgets in the widget tree as being unique. And we use the same concept in the new Navigator 2 API. And then the other use of key was on the navigator itself. And that's so that we can do things like pop the current state and manage the navigator stack itself.
Okay, and what is the difference between navigator.push or just using the name route?
What is the difference between and using named routes? So I just want to be clear about so something that people I don't think understand. So a named route simply goes through. So the way named routes work in Navigator 1 is you pass a name, and it puts that name through a table and gets a route back out. Right? That's all it does. So named route, every route has a name, but the way you push it or the way you start it depends on if you want to go through that initial table that you provide with Material app. You get to do that with the new navigator. I haven't shown it here. However, you can just create your table, and inside your push function or whatever function you want to manage your own stack, you can simply look through that table. Is the route name in that table? Then pass that builder over to your page, and that's it. You've now done exactly what the current framework does. It's that simple.
Okay. Next question is: Can we show built-in material dialogues in declarative way to have them in pages stack?
Oh, sure. So something that I think again a lot of people misunderstand. So when you maybe I can find in my example here. Can we switch back to the screen? So if I can find the function. So I just want you to point this out. So here we go, show dialog. Alert dialog right here is the widget that displays. So this here is literally the widget that displays on the screen. So if I was to copy this, right, and then create a let's say route. We'll say route 3. So we can say if we push, we'll just hack this in right now as a good example. It's a terrible example, but we'll just hack it in and say if name is equal to route 3, yeah, then return my page else 1 and key, and have the same key. We'll have the same name, and then the interesting point here is our route factory, just so I can reuse the same page because I'm being lazy right now. This can return a material page route, and that has a builder. Return our alert dialog, right? And if we wanted to be very clever, we should probably center that, I guess. I don't know. So if I restart the app now, so there's route 0, route 1, route 2, and there's me being silly. Hang on, I know what that is. Yeah, that should fix that. Hang on, let's start again. Running again, Tyrant 1, live coding 3. There you go. So this has pushed it on the stack, you see. So we have got the dialog, and if hit yes, it's all failed. This is what happens when you live code. Oh, that's because I didn't call this context. And again, so another little thing, which I could do actually, if I would make this a page route builder, should think opaque, yeah. Opaque false. color black 54 or something. The builder is a page builder, is it? I can't remember. Page builder, yeah. With slightly different parameters, so we'll just do this. Okay, so fingers crossed and everyone's happy. Do 1, 2, 3. There you go. So as you can see, what we've essentially done here, I've hacked this in and I'll commit this code so you've got it. I would not recommend you just chuck this straight in your build function for sure. Like you would want to build your page route and have a nice proper sort of dialog page configuration, right, which does a lot of this for you. But as you can see, we just push the dialog as a page and I can hit yes and it'll pop it. So we're still using the page stack. You can see here, look, there's route 3, it got popped back to route 2, right? So yeah, it's perfectly viable to do that. In fact, if we hit yes, we can actually do something funky like this and say push route 4 or I don't know, route magic. Just give it a different name, right? Just to show you what actually happens here. So we start again. 1, 2, 3. Hit yes. There's the next page called route magic that's now pushed. And if I hit delete, that's going to delete the dialog. I think we just saw a bug there, which is interesting. Anyway, and route 4, route 5, and hit back, and that'll go back and not show the dialog because the dialog's now gone. There's a little glint there of a little frame of the dialog, which might be actually a bug, or it might be my implementation because I'm just doing it really quickly. But anyway, that shall answer the question. Right. Sorry, what was the other question?
Yeah, perfect. That was absolutely cool. I guess we have time for the last question, and it's for how long can we have stack restoration? Is it stored somewhere?
So here's the key concept, right? That you can, so whenever that stack changes, you can store it out. So I'm going to give a plug. I made a package called state_persistence. You can go find it on pub.dev. And that literally does what you expect. So by default, it's got a default implementation of the JSON file, and you can give it any set of widgets, any set of variables you want. It will store them in the JSON file and return them back to you. So you can use that in conjunction with this to store your configuration for your set of pages. Again, in this case, I've just made a string array, but that could easily be I can easily store that to a JSON file, and when I get it back, I then create my new set of pages from that. So yeah, it's definitely possible, but how long? As long as you have your app, right? I mean, yeah, we'll see. Thank you, Philip. I see these comments. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, Simon, thank you for an amazing session. The live coding was absolutely amazing.
You're welcome.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Nice. Have a nice day. And our next speaker is Lara. Lara, she is a Flutter and Dart GDE. She's an Android developer and speaker as well. And I found on her Twitter that she has an amazing dog. And she's gonna talk about web views in Flutter. So hi, Lara.
Hello. Thank you for inviting me. Yes, my dog is Lily, but she's not here in the room. Otherwise, it would be very noisy during the talk. So,
yeah, nice. The stage is yours.
Okay, cool. Let me take a look at this. Cool. So this works. Awesome. Yes, so welcome everyone. I hope you've been enjoying the talk far. My name is Lara, as it's been said already. I'm an Android developer. That's my professional work, daily work, and I'm based in Berlin, in Germany. And I'm very glad to be here today with you. So you might be wondering why I want to talk about web views, probably because you don't feel that it's the most exciting thing in the world. I have to say that I haven't met anyone that is excited about web views. But the thing is that they got my attention in the past. To know how it worked. I had many questions like, are they using the native view? Are they recreating everything in Flutter? And when I initially gave this talk a year ago, many things didn't work. But just some days ago, a new release on Flutter, like the release 1.20, happened. Contains a new rendering system, and it's very exciting because it's very promising, and it looks like this is gonna help to fix the many issues that the web view had. So without further ado, let's have a look at the fascinating world of web views together. So first of all, what's a web view? A web view is a browser that is bundled inside a mobile application. Using a web view allows mobile applications to use web technologies, let's say HTML, JavaScript, CSS, etc., to display its content. On Android and iOS, the web view are like any other UI components, like text views or buttons. Just they are like a mini browser inside your application. For example, you can use them to display something that already exists, so you don't have to implement it already again natively. Let's say to show a third-party website to confirm a payment for PayPal, or to show some static content like the FAQ. No one implements an FAQ and API for that because you can already show what you have on the website. It's nothing more than that. So people even use web views to bundle full websites inside applications. But we are native developers, right? And we do not do that here. Wink. And what about Flutter? On Flutter, a web view is a widget. It does not come bundled in Flutter SDK by default, so you have to import a plugin. The Flutter team published the web view plugin that provides a web view widget that you can find in the pub.dev website. This plugin is still considered a developer's preview because it relies on the Flutter's mechanism for embedding Android and iOS views. Is still still a developer's preview. How do you use the plugin? You declare the package on your path-spec YAML file, like any other dependency, and you synchronize, you get the package, and it will be ready already for use on Android. On iOS, you have to do a step extra, which is to add a key in the info.list file, but you can find the information in the documentation. Now, how has the web view been implemented in Flutter? The web view on Flutter has not been re-implemented in Flutter or Dart. They did not create a new Dart WebKit, but instead, View widget uses the native platform web views. On iOS, View widget uses is backed by the WebKit web view, and on Android is backed by the web view. And Flutter will be using the one that's corresponding to the platform where you are running your application in. But then, is it a widget? It uses the native web view and it renders the native view inside Flutter, just like another Flutter widget. So yes. And so how can we, can the Flutter view widget render what it's being rendered already in the native view? And that's what I want to explain now. And that's what actually made me very curious about, to understand how the rendering system works. So I focus on the platform because, as I said, I'm a developer and that's what I know. But the iOS implementation is just similar. It's the same. Just using different classes, and you will see later. But it's the same idea. So to understand this, what I did is to create a small application myself. and to use the Flutter inspector. What I did is to create just a list of documentations to learn Flutter, and then when clicking on one of them, it will open the website inside the web view. To learn how the web view works, I use the Flutter inspector, and then I could see the widget tree. And that's what you can see on the left side of the screen. In our example, in this example, we have a material application symbol with a scaffold and contains two things. One is the app bar, which corresponds to the action bar on top, and then the full the web view, spanning the whole body. So the web view is a widget, so it can be used as any other kind of widget. It does not have to take the whole screen. It can be as small as you want. So once you click on the web view in the Flutter inspector, you can see the internals, the tree below that. And there are many things here, but the important thing is the Android view. So now I'm going to show you a diagram step by step on how the rendering works. I'll be using blue for the Flutter side classes and for the Android side. And just a disclaimer, what I'm going to explain now is how the platform views rendering currently work. But it's a new mechanism, as I said before, since the latest Flutter release, and I'm going to compare it later on. So currently, this is how the rendering works. We have the Flutter web view widget. The web view contains inside this Android view as a child, and as we saw in this vector. And the goal of the Android view is to embed an Android view, as the name says, in the widget hierarchy. The documentation says that this is an expensive operation. And then after you see the diagram and understand how this works, you will understand why. So on App Start, when you start your application, the framework registers a web view plugin on the Android side, and it gives it ID to identify it. So when you need to create a native web view, this plugin takes care of it. In our case, the Android view is contained in the Flutter web view, and uses the same ID to tell the framework, please create web view. Then the Flutter engine uses a web view factory to create the actual native view. It creates an instance of Flutter web view class on the Android side, which implements a platform view interface, and this contains the actual native web view. So far, we have created the native web view, and now we have to render it. On the native side, we have the platform view controller that takes care of the rendering of this native web view, but instead of displaying it on the screen directly, it renders it inside the graphic surface. Then Flutter is going to use that surface to draw it later in Flutter. And now on the back to the Flutter side. I know that this is very confusing, and I understand, but the whole idea is that the Android view on Flutter side will ultimately generate a render box, which is going to be used to draw things on the screen. And finally, this render Android view that extends render box is going to draw the native web view contents on the screen. And how is going to do that? How is doing this? So it uses the data that is contained in the native surface. To do so, it's accessing this surface via an ID. Remember, everything has an ID. It already knows which view is copying. And the image data that we have is going to be drawn inside the render box. So what it's doing is reading the data from the surface and redrawing it in a render box. So you can imagine this happening for every frame, every change. So it's a very expensive operation. And do not worry, because if you were sleeping in this section, I have TLDL for you. If you long didn't listen. The Flutter web view uses the native plugin to create an instance of the native web view. This one, the native web view, is rendered inside a surface. When with the surface data that it has, then it's read by a render Android view, which is extending my render box, and it's drawing it on the screen, essentially in where the native web view is showing. And guess what? That's the same process that it's been used to render any native views. For example, Google Maps. And this is how Flutter until now renders platform views. And what about iOS? As I said, it's very similar to Android, but instead of a render Android view, it uses the render UI kit view, which will render the surface created by the platform view iOS by the Flutter engine. And it also passes an ID to identify which graphic surface needs to be copied. As we've seen, Android view currently renders into a texture. And this is how the platform views have worked until now and still work. But now, from Flutter 1.20, released some days ago, just last week, if I'm not mistaken, there's a new way of rendering platform views called hybrid composition. By default, as I said, the web view plugin, as per today, you steal the old rendering system. So it's generating the Android view and render UI kit view. But with hybrid composition, it's going to be using a surface and web view instead. So I tried to make a diagram on what is happening, but I'm still not sure of all the details. But so far, what I understand is that in hybrid composition, instead of Flutter creating an Android view, it creates an Android view surface that will also generate a render box ultimately. This Android view surface integrates an Android view, the native view, with the whole Flutter engine compositor, the semantics and subsystems, all the subsystems. So connects the Android with Flutter. Whereas Android view, as we said, embeds the Android platform view with the hierarchy using a texture. Now, what happened on the engine side? This is the box I draw there. Well, we still have need some factory that will return the platform views and controllers. But what the engine does ultimately to show the native web view is necessary for me, I have to say. When I was reading the engine code, everything was C++ and everything seemed very like a magic happening there. So that's what I represented here with some magic. And from what I understand, Flutter takes the Android native web view and displays it directly on top. That's what I understood. Like if it was like a feature called picture in picture, like on YouTube, that you can have your YouTube video top of something else. It's like you have a window on top of another. This is very new. This was just last week. So stay tuned to future documentation, technical deep dives on the topic. Some hybrid composition. Please, someone do a talk on that because I want to learn as well. Now, so I talked about how the rendering and drawing of the web view works, but also how do we use it? And by the way, my keyword is animated container. The web view, which accepts a series of parameters, which are worth checking, even write all the parameters, but I chose the most common of that I think. And just let's go through them. First of all, we have initial URL, which, as this name says, allows you set an initial URL to tell the web view which web to load on creation. But this is a parameter, an optional parameter, so you can provide this URL later if you want as well. And this is what you normally do. You try out the first web and see how it works. But you will sometimes notice that some websites don't load. And the thing is that it can be that the website requires JavaScript to run. So in that case, you will need to also enable JavaScript. And how you can do that, there's a parameter for that. There are two modes. There's the unrestricted mode. This means that we can only specify whether it disable or allow JavaScript to be run in our widget. And by default, it's disabled. So if a website that you're trying to load requires JavaScript, it won't load. The next parameter I want to show is a call called onWebViewCreated. And as the name says, what is given you is a callback that it's invoked once the web view is created. The cool thing is that with this callback, you will receive a controller, the web view controller. And you can keep a reference to this controller so you can control the web view, basically. This controller exposes a bunch of methods like load URL, current URL, can go back, clear cache. These methods are asynchronous, meaning that you will have to do an async await call. And for example, how can we use one of those? I chose to show you quickly the reload. Very straightforward. Imagine you have a website that fails to load and you want to reload it. So easy thing to do would be, or the straightforward thing to do would be to add some button on your action bar to allow the user to reload, to have this reload action. So let's say we have a button, and inside the indexing block of the onPress, we can call the reload command. More things, interesting things on the WebView widget are the callbacks on page finished and on page started. These callbacks are received or are invoked when once the website is finished loading or start loading. So you could use them to, for example, change your UI and show and hide a products bar, let's say, some animation. This is a very typical usage. If you have a web view inside the list view, it can bring you some problems when you're trying to scroll your list, right? Because if you want to scroll your list but your finger touches the web view, you will be scrolling the website inside your list. And it's not what you intended to do. And that's why you can provide gesture recognizers. I'm not going into detail with it because it deserves its own talk. But if you want to see this in action, I will recommend you very much to check on the Flutter Boring Show on YouTube, because they had to implement gesture recognizers for their Harken News app, and they added the web views to have previews of the news. And also, I added a link to a really nice article from Amy Fortuna where she's talking about them. Now imagine that you have your web view, the user clicks on a link and it opens Twitter, but your app is not like a Twitter application. You don't want the user to go into Twitter and then navigate and browsing within your application. You want to contain your users within your app and not allow them to navigate to some other. So to accomplish this with the WebView widget, you can define a navigation delegate. In navigation delegate, you given a URL that is going to be loaded, you can decide what you want to do, which navigation do you want to do. And this can have two values, prevent to block the navigation action or navigate to allow it. And last but not least, from all the parameters I chose to talk to about, I want to show you the JavaScript channels, which is, I found it very fun. This basically allows you to, or allows JavaScript and Flutter to communicate with each other. So in the snippet you see here on the screen, you can see that the channels are set, but you can define more than one, but I only define one for testing purposes. So here I have one, which is a defined then within a variable. So I'm gonna define my JavaScript channel, which will have two properties. One is the name that will be used from the JavaScript side later to communicate with Flutter, and it's gonna be like a static class object that you can already use on the JavaScript side. And in this case, it's named Lara Demo. And then the second property is the onMessage receipt. And this is a callback that will receive the JavaScript message. The JavaScript message at this moment is only a string, can only be a string. And for this example, I'm just printing. So this is a Flutter site what you see on screen. How can you use these on the JavaScript site? On the website, when we call JavaScript channel, we use the name that we define, in my case, Lara Demo. And then we can call a method called postMessage and send a message, a string. And this is within in HTML, is defined within the script tags. And this means that once you load the website, this script is gonna be run, right? And this script is gonna be run, the JavaScript is gonna be called, it's gonna send a message, and it's gonna be received by the Flutter application that where you are defining this. So potentially you could run some kind of logics or almost anything, I would say. Cool. So this is about all I can. I want to talk on the WebView widget. I also mentioned before that there were many limitations, and there are still limitations. We can do many things from basic navigation, interaction with JavaScript, but this is still an early stage plugin. It's not feature complete yet. So it's not, I will not say that it's production ready yet, because there are many limitations. It depends on what you want to do with it for sure, but there are many limitations still. So the first thing everyone asks is always, what about performance? This is like the favorite question of everyone. Well, it depends. The Flutter team already tells you on the documentation that if you are rendering Android views, this is very costly. So they already knew. Other people will say that, well, it works flawlessly on phone, so I don't see any performance issues. You already saw how the rendering system works. You can imagine that this is costly. This is copying, the system is copying the native view data and redrawing it. So yeah, you can imagine this is costly. So be very mindful using web views or any other native view inside Flutter. And about issues that are known until now, since until now and still now, since it's using the regular rendering system for platform views, this plugin has a lot of issues that are still there, going from accessibility issues where, for example, the talkback will not work properly, issues with the keyword where you cannot change the language or it's not popping up in certain cases. Text selection is also not working properly. For example, if you select some text on Android on an input field, it does not show you the handles where it allows you to copy paste, select things. Yeah, animations are also sluggish. But as I said, there's this hybrid composition rendering system now, and there's some hope. There's already APR against Flutter where they are explaining the changes and all the issues that this is going to be solving potentially. And also here you have a link to the PR where they are in the new rendering system in the Flutter WebView plugin. So if you want to understand a little bit more how this works, go there and check it out. And also thumbs up to the PRs. I'm gonna let you know why later. And well, what's next? The Flutter team and the community are working on improving this plugin because there is a lot of interest on having it feature complete. It's not because we all love web views, but we need web views. You know, our product managers or project managers want to build some features that require web views, and we need them. You can find everything on GitHub. You can find the list of tasks, the projects, and whatever they are working on, the Flutter team, and all the issues that are open, everything. You can see, for example, that there is a PR open by Simon. He just gave a talk, and here you can see he's contributing also to the WebView plugin. He's improving in this PR scrolling. And another interesting thing I found is that it's coming the ability to do the pinch to zoom on Android, but this is still open. Soon it will be there. Well, a few words about contribution. As you know, Flutter is open source, and so is the WebView plugin that I presented to you today. You already saw Simon contributing, and you can also contribute. While I was following all these issues and learning about WebView widget, I saw a comment from an engineer from Google that said something very interesting and that I saved and I loved. He said, we prioritize issues by the count of thumbs on the issue description. That means that you can also contribute just by giving thumbs up in issues and features that you want and you find relevant for you for your work. If you find you come across some issue and you see it's open, go and it's affecting you and it's important to you, go and give a thumb up. This will help them to prioritize what to work on and what has more priority. As I said, everything is on GitHub, everything. So please go there and check it out, look for issues or improvements that you can think of as well. Submit pull requests if you can. And please give thumbs up to issues so they fix the most important issues. Giving thumbs up is also contributing. You will be able to find all slides now on my Twitter. If I'm not mistaken, I did it before. Thank you a lot, Flutter OnAir, for inviting me to today here to be with you all. And thank you all for listening. Thank you, everyone.
Lara, thank you for joining us. And we have time for one super quick question. Can the WebView load cookies from the website?
Oh, that's a good question. I haven't checked. Yeah, I don't know, to be honest. I haven't worked with cookies, so I'm not sure right now how they deal with them. But yeah, good question. Good question. I can give it a quick look and let you know.
Okay, Lara, thank you for joining us. It was great and perfect timing.
Thank you.
And last but not least, let me welcome Filip and Jose from the Google team. It's super cool that you are joining us. And actually, we have Simon here, and he will join us as well in the Q&A session. So if you have any question, feel free to ask.
Yeah, hello. Thanks for having us.
Hello. Hey, thanks.
Yeah, maybe a short introduction. Filip, I guess everyone knows him. He works at Google, and he's like super known in boring show. And Jose, he's from the Google as well, and he works as a software engineer there. So,
should I introduce myself?
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
I guess.
I'm Jose Nicholas Alba. I just recently graduated university. I'm now working in the material organization, working on the material package within Flutter.
Cool. And Simon is here as well. So I guess we can start with like first question. And how are you guys today?
Fantastic. My day is pretty good actually.
Yeah,
nice here.
Me too. I'm really good. It's my morning, and I started the morning by watching Simon do like acrobatics in code. So it was pretty good. Yeah.
My day's been pretty good. It's pretty much over now. This is the sort of the end of the afternoon for me. Oh, it's so hot here. I'm not joking. There's no AC. We don't have AC in the UK.
Same in Germany.
Oh my god. Yeah. So I'm surviving, but I started panicking yesterday because it was like I suddenly saw that the router stuff was committed. I was like, oh no, it's a master now. I've got to add that to my talk. So yeah, race to get that done. But yeah.
Yeah, actually, it's super hot. I don't want to know the temperature in my room because it's super hot. But well, guys, actually, how long do you code in a Flutter or Dart?
Who goes first? I don't want to go first.
All right, I'll go first, I guess. I've been developing, like my first time experiencing Flutter was actually coding a lot of Flutter was the January 2019. I joined originally as an intern. I was working on an internal Flutter application, but then I'm working here full time now, and I
was just thinking about this actually. Like, I think for me, it's like I was just thinking about when I actually heard about Flutter when I started using it. I think it was about like October 2017. So that was like mid alpha or something. Yeah, because it was about March. I think it was the following March that beta was launched. I think so. About that. Yeah, long time ago.
Yeah. Well, so I actually. Well, I started with Dart, right? And that was in 2011, and I was doing a lot of that for a long time. And then I actually joined the Dart team, and I was kind of dismissive, to be honest, of Flutter. I was like, this new thing. It's never going to do anything. And not that. But, I was kind of like, no, let's just use Dart for web and stuff like this. And then I was I stood corrected, and I guess I started doing Flutter in 2016 because that's when I joined the team, and also people were like, "Hey, like Flutter is kind of a big deal now." So
I mean, you say that, right? Like I think it was around the same time, like it was about 2016. I think I heard about Flutter the year before, but I was that Android developer that was like, another cross-platform thing. This is going to be web. It's going to be terrible. Yeah, and then when I heard about how it was working, I was like, actually, no. This sounds interesting. I want this. I want to try this out.
I heard of it beforehand, like quite a bit beforehand, but I never actually developed anything. But then, like when I was joining a team, they asked me what I was interested in joining in, and like I said, I was interested in either working with money or with Flutter. So, so I joined working with Flutter. Mm-hmm.
Actually, I know it's well, it's just 8 months. See,
it's cool.
I will check if we have a few questions in a chat.
Well, there's one, and I don't really understand it. Can we add trailing commas to Dart format?
Well,
What
I mean, I
does
think
that mean?
that's what I was going to say. I think there's a thing, right, where sorry for going in for that. I was thinking about I think the point here is trailing commas are optional, right? So it'd be nice to say, can we force? This was actually brought up the other day when I was talking about semicolons to someone. They're like, oh, we just have Dart format add semicolons for you, you know, which is fine. I mean, you know, that sounds nice. But I think the same thing with the trailing commas is like you get nicer formatting when you add trailing commas. If you don't add trailing commas, you kind of get the JavaScript kind of like layout of Dart. So
yeah. So
yeah,
I have no idea, but I see a lot of people using using the trailing comma as their way to at least have a little input to the formatter, right? And I do that all the time. Like sometimes I want the nicer thing, but in many cases, like especially in, for example, constructors, if they're not that long, I don't want a trailing comma there, right? So I don't know. But yeah, I mean, there's always this talk about how much can we allow people to configure Dart format before it gets too crazy and everyone basically like it kind of loses its impact, right? Right now, Dart format is nice because it's super strict. It will only do one thing, and so everyone is on the same page.
I also agree with Philip in the sense that, like, whenever I'm having a constructor, if it's just a one-line constructor, I just want it to be in one line. But if I add the comma at the very end, then it's gonna pretty much create a new line. I think add the parameter there, and then another new line for the brackets. So in that case, I don't want the comma automatically.
Actually, I found the questions people are asking on the Slido, and there's one super cool question. Where do you see Flutter in 1 year from now? Actually, I don't know. What do you think?
Better than it is now. in more people's hands. Yeah.
I get more and more people's hands. I think more support for Flutter Web, I guess. Better, like Flutter Web is already out of beta and everything, but I'd like to see more packages and more things just specifically for web, since it's growing quickly. So that's what I think would be the next awesome, like that again, the next year, like bridges that gap. Right now, Android and iPhone, Android and iOS have amazing support, right? I think web, adding it to just as amazing as them would be the next thing to do, and I would like that to be within the year.
I think just thinking about like what I mentioned earlier during my talk, like another one is state restoration, which is a big thing that's been you know spoken about since day one on Flutter. So that would be nice to see that soon, hopefully. And just to be aware that people may not be aware, there's actually a design docs page on the Flutter website where you can go see all the design documents and you can review them. You can leave comments. The team will take that input. So yeah, contribute.
Yeah. I think I like to think about the kind of also the community aspect, right? Because like if you remember a year ago or 2 years ago, especially, like the community was much smaller and more like tight knit and everything. And now we're seeing this, not explosion, but a lot of new people are coming. And I always am partly excited about the new people that are coming and partly a little worried that this could kind of spiral out of control and like the culture that I think is really nice now, like when everyone is trying to help each other and people are very open, then it could kind of be overridden by this like, hey, let's work and let's just kind of, I don't know. So I worry about that, but otherwise I think it's on a good, as you say, to be in more people's hands, but also to be in front, the Flutter apps be in front of more people. That's probably a big change from between now and next year, is that hopefully a lot of more people will be using Flutter apps.
I think, yeah. I mean, definitely.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't remember. Is it up to 70,000 a month or something? Apps being made or something? I can't remember. It's some. I can't remember what the statistic was. I read recently. I was like,
I don't remember.
Where are these all coming from? I don't know.
Yeah, I see another question here. What is the name of the Flutter bird?
Yeah.
And it reminds me, it reminds me, it's another question. What is the name of the building where are the most of the Flutter developers? It's something like, I don't know, what is it?
So this guy's called Dash.
Oh, okay. So
he's a fat.
Yeah, it's Dash.
Fat hummingbird.
Yeah, it's that.
This is a creation of a member of the Flutter team, Shams Zakur. So kudos to Shams. She designed him from scratch. And the name of the building currently is Home, right? We're all at home, working from home. But if not, if this wasn't a global pandemic, then we would be in. Actually, it's now 1808. So like, at Google. In Mountain View, there's like all the buildings have their number, and so the one that we are in is 1808. Before this was 1842.
I can't remember which one did I go to when I was over in was it last GUG? I think it was 1808.
When was it?
Is it the one that's up the road from the amphitheater?
That might have been, yeah. Yeah, both are, but yeah.
Oh, well, of course, yeah.
Yeah, and the question, someone's asking with ton of question marks, when is the webcam unstable?
When it's stable. Sorry, I'm being facetious.
When the webcam...
I mean...
Yeah.
Go on, I think there's a delay.
It's really hard to say. Oh, is it? Oh, okay. Sorry. So yeah, I'll just say it and then I'll shut up. But yeah, we don't really know, and things like we can have plans, but plans change. So we generally don't say when it's going unstable, but it's coming.
Yeah.
I think from me personally, just thinking about Flutter, I'm not part of the Flutter team. I know there's no first part knowledge, but for me, I think if I worked, see, the thing is, these questions are ones that we get quite often. The thing is, put yourself in the position of the team, right? Like, when is it going to be stable? Well, when the major bugs are resolved and that it feels stable, then it'll be released as stable, right? So if you feel that you want to get that faster to that end goal, well, then, look at some of the PRs, look at some of the issues that are linked to web, comment on them, say, can I work on this bug? And it's an open source project. Get us all there sooner.
Yeah, and someone's asking in the chat about the state management. What do you use, guys? Because I tried like provider and now I'm learning the blog. What do you use?
Well, does anyone want to take this first?
For me, like when we were developing the Flutter gallery, we just use like I guess in my case it might be simpler since the Flutter gallery isn't like absolutely insane compared to some other applications. But I just use like the default things in Flutter, I guess.
I don't think there's any need for like me personally. I don't go for any one particular solution, right? So I've used quite a lot of different ones that are out there. I kind of find myself just spinning my own implementations of simple things. I mean, a lot of what the platform gives us is quite. I mean, the problem here is state management has been mixed with architecture, right? Like app architecture. The two terms have almost kind of become interchangeable in the Flutter sphere. So, you know, but this guy's obviously asking about like medium-sized apps with HTTP requests, cache, multi-screens. I mean, again, I think the difference is about opinionated code. So the big, for me, coming to Flutter, the big difference was coming from Android where everything was opinionated. Everything had to be done this way. People didn't really want, you know, there was no sort of like free will to put your resources however you want or name things however you wanted. There was certain ways of doing things, and mainly because the platform is just so old. I mean, like there's certain ways of you have to deal with the platform, certain ways of naming things and working with things and architecting your code. So I think that with Flutter coming on fresh and with it being like completely customizable, being like one of the big foundational things, like you can lay things out, you can do the architecture however you want. I mean, there's a HTTP library, you can go create your own cache, you can go grab Quiver's LRU cache, you know, make some functions that use the cache and use the HTTP requests, and now you've got a nice caching HTTP backend for your app. I mean, I know I'm making that sound simple, and it's not simple, right? But the point here is that it's all possible, and that's the key, right? So yeah, I don't think I've got any particular recommendation.
Yeah, I was I was gonna say that. So yeah, thank you. I like first of all, I really like how Martin is asking about a particular type of app, right? So because generally we get questions about like, hey, how do you like what state management approach do you recommend? And then that's like a really hard thing to answer because it could be a counter app, or it could be like a game, or it could be something way bigger than a normal app. But this seems like a medium-sized app, HTTP requests, cache. And I think at that point, unfortunately, it depends, because it basically is like everything could work for you. Like blog could work for you, just provider and nothing else could work for you. I've been looking at RiverPod by Remy, which is the basically like provider with hooks and other things, which also can absolutely work for you. Mobex also, a lot of people that I know are using that. So it kind of at that point it's like, okay, do you want to be like standardized? Then I'd guess go with provider or something kind of low level and work on top of that. If you want to kind of have less of the boilerplate and more of maybe a little bit more magic, then you should go with some of those other things like Mobex and provider. And a lot of people like blog because it's kind of like MVP. It kind of is more familiar for a lot of us when we're coming from reactive programming, and it also is nice to work with. So yeah, depends. I'm sorry, but there's no better answer for this.
Yeah, I guess it's like good answer, Lara. Actually, I have like one question about the boring show. Who's behind this idea? Is it you, Filip?
Yeah, I'll take the credit. So I was working on, as I said before. So I was a Dart before, and I was looking at things before Flutter was a thing, pretty much. And I was looking at things that could work in video form. And you have to remember at that time, Dart was like the unwanted child. Like everyone was dumping on Dart. Dart was dead. And like I remember that I like if you searched for Dart language, Dart programming language, like an 8 out of 10 results in Google were like how Dart is terrible and not a good idea, right? So because there's a lot of history there, but that was the thing. And I was thinking about like how do we make something that doesn't really get like, it isn't really marketing, it's mostly just education, and it's kind of clear that we're not trying to make this look hypey or better than it actually is. And I made a document, and then I forgot about it, and then Flutter came, and we were thinking about different things, and I said, yeah, let's have this. And then obviously it wasn't just me, because there's a whole team. Andrew like helped me take it off the ground, and then all of the people obviously who were on the stage, I guess, including Simon, right, really helped to make it what it is now. So yeah, and it's been working fine. And actually other people, like not from Flutter, are now using kind of the similar approach of pair programming and not editing, and just doing something like that.
I think one of the powers of the boring show is just showing the mistakes, showing that what's going on here, trying to debug that situation, trying to understand what went wrong, talking through the problem, right, with the person that you're with, and then working out the solution. That is powerful. That is educational right there.
That's exactly what. Yeah, that's exactly. It kind of is scary from the perspective of the person who's on the boring show. It's like. But whenever we say, okay, we'll talk about like navigation, I stop myself from actually looking at it, because I want to make the mistakes that a normal person would make if they tried to do this basically for the first time. So yeah, but it's scary.
I think the nice thing about having it is there's a lot of imposter syndrome in the industry. Like, people go, I can never learn that. I never know that. It's like, you know what you know. I mean, like if you'd known about the navigator, or read about that before you did the show, then you look like, oh, I know all about it because you just read it, right? It's fresh in your mind, so on and so forth. So I feel like there's that. People then go, oh, how does he know about all this stuff? Like, I can't know about all this stuff, right? And it's no, the documentation is there for a reason, right? So I feel like there's a certain amount of that which is great to have. The show shows you.
Yeah, and I wanted to ask about the Flutter gallery. Is it made in Flutter or Dart as well?
Yeah, it is. Actually, when I joined, a month later, my TL, I guess, told us we're going to be working on this, and we had like a month and a bit to do it. So we started from the bottom, like completely from nothing, completely in Flutter, and we built it up. It has some pretty cool things I usually don't think about, like coming as a new grad, I guess. For example, adaptive layout, making sure my screen works on the phone, but also like your web, like your web view or something, or like anything bigger, right? We also had to implement internationalization, so support for multiple languages, support for LTR languages, RTL languages, and it's really useful whenever you want to see like what a widget does. I go to it myself often, and to see like, oh, how is this widget implemented? I go to so if you want to see it for yourself, you go to gallery.flutter.dev. You see like what you can make with Flutter. It also shows you like the material widgets, Cupertino widgets, and then you click the widget, and it shows you how to like. There's a pretty much a Dart pad that's running there, like showing you how it runs, an example of how it runs. It's really cool in case you want to like learn some widgets or something like that. But yeah, it was all made with Flutter. So, and it was made approximately like in a month and a half, like from nothing to like for Flutter Interact. Yeah.
Yep. And actually, one more question. Do you have some favorite library or package for Flutter?
I guess for me, it's probably tied between two, like Google Fonts package, which was announced in Flutter Interact, and then the other one is the grinder package, which is the grinder package pretty much lets you have like a bash script like that you can make with Dart. So it's pretty useful whenever I'm like coding and I need to like have a script that always like a specific Flutter script that runs or something. I use like a grinder script that I make in Dart, and I use it pretty often in my personal applications.
Yeah, for example, the Google fonts are super useful, and I use it as well.
Yeah, I think it's extremely useful. Yeah. I recently made this like little small application which uses Google Fonts, and basically like you put in a paragraph or a sentence probably, and basically each letter is going to be like a different type of font, and I think within like 20 letters, like it has like this like cryptic font. It looks pretty cool, and you see all the different types of fonts. But it takes some time to load it because if you have a huge paragraph, then I think you just DDoS your own computer.
If that question about packages was for everyone, I'll just mention. I think I don't really have like one particular favorite one, but one that I just kind of took to scan through some ones I used recently. Blur hash, Flutter blur hash. I don't know if you guys have used it, but if you're doing like loading of images, then basically it allows you to calculate a hash from the original input image, and that string, that simple little string, can be passed across in your JSON model. So immediately you can have like a blurry version of an image as it loads in, and that can be shipped as part of your data model inside your Firestore. So really, really makes a difference. Honestly, it's one of those very subtle things that as soon as you see it in use, it makes all the difference in the world to how the app feels.
Yeah, I like that. I'm gonna also answer this, but I'm actually looking at my go-to project for and the PEP spec, and I like, for example, scroll to index, which is something that I think should probably be in the Flutter framework, to be honest. But it's basically when you need to scroll to a place in a list view that is not like that does not have uniform sizes of its children. So that's very nice. And then Sentry, like for the things that are very useful in terms of kind of productionizing and stuff like this, then there's Sentry. So the package Sentry that lets you put your logs and put your exceptions to Sentry.io so that your users, when they have a problem, you actually see it and you can see what went wrong. And yeah, I'll stop there. But there's lots of things that I like. I like smaller packages that some of these, for example, Sentry will just work on any. It doesn't need Flutter for it to work, but it obviously works in Flutter as well.
Yeah. And someone asking, sometimes I feel Kotlin developers are dismissive of Flutter. What do you think, guys, about it? I guess it's true.
I'm not gonna like. There's no point like talking about that specifically, right? But I am not joking. Like in 2018, and this is taking us back a bit. When I did JoyCon London, we did a Flutter community booth. And obviously, a lot of the Android developers have jumped on from Java to Kotlin, and they've just got a new language, new syntax, and they go, well, why can't I just use Kotlin? Because I know I've just learned Kotlin, that this is now the thing I'm doing. Why do I have to learn Dart? So this is always the case. This is always the question that we get. I think that is the problem. It's not about like any particular developer being dismissive. I think it's a case of, again, it's that kind of attitude that I remember having when I heard about Flutter originally was that, oh, it's another thing, it's going to be the same as the rest of them, it's rubbish, or it's been dismissive. Sure, I mean, I was dismissive then, right? But that's the same with anyone, right? It's a bit like as I said to other people, it's when you try like a new operating system or something like that, they've always changed something. Like, why haven't they got the search button where I had the search button before? Well, because UX have determined that there's a better place for it, or it works differently, right? I mean, we work in the industry, we know this, right? But still, we're a bit angry that they've moved the button that I knew where it was, or something silly like that, right? Well, the same thing goes with this, right? Again, people are like, this is different. It's always going to be some hurdle to get into it initially, right? And I think the case what we need to do as people in the community is not just to advocate, say, oh, it's amazing, you should use it, because obviously people have heard that like that from everywhere, right? Great. Is to show it, right? To show the reasons why they should try it, and that's the difference.
Yeah, I think that this goes back to the idea of like, where is the community going in a year or 5 years? And unfortunately, I think there's gonna be that from us as well, right? Like when there's something new coming, and in 10 years from now, there will be Flutter developers who will be like, oh, this is terrible, I'm gonna stick with Flutter. So that's just human nature. And I just hope that will be a little, people will be more reflective of these things, and be more like, it's let them have it, right? I don't need to love something for it to be useful for someone else. So it's very human, but it's also nothing to be too stressed about, and hopefully the Flutter community will be good in this respect.
Yeah. Actually, there's maybe the last question. Do you have any information about the support, about the more stable support on iOS 14 with Flutter?
Yeah, there's a bug that tracks all of this, and I wish I had it right now, but it's basically, we know that iOS 14 is coming right now. Only iOS developers who opt into the iOS 14 beta are able to have it on their phones, and they have some issues right now. Like, for example, if you run your debug app for the first time, then you'll see like a little pop-up that says like, hey, do you allow local connections? And that's not great, but it's also something that you only deal with once as a developer, and your users will obviously not run your debug app, so they will not see this. But there are some things like that, and again, I'll try to search for the issue so that you can see and thumb it up. We are on track to make all of this by the time that iOS 14 actually launches, that we'll have all that covered. Now I'm gonna search for that bug.
Yeah, that's nice. I'm looking for another question from a chat. They are like super complex. For example, how does Apple feel about Flutter? What do you think?
What was that? What does Apple feel about Flutter? I'm not Apple, so I have no idea. To be honest, like they've said before that they're fine with, like, it's like most things, right? You don't like no one wants an app that is a rebadged same app thing, right? So that's the reason why they've kind of said, like, you can't just have a rebadged web app in the Apple App Store. So I don't think there's going to be any problem. There's already like lots of high profile apps all using Flutter. They're not going to say, oh, you can't have Flutter apps, right? And to be honest, there's no like Flutter specific thing. It's just compiled code, like any other compiled code at the end of the day. So, why not? What would be the problem? I don't know.
Okay. Actually, do you code Flutter, like on your own? Like after the job, you go home and like and code something in Flutter?
I do. Like it depends how I'm feeling of the month or something, if I'm inspirational or whatnot. But recently I started working on a Flutter application that just summarize like the books I read. I want to summarize those books, so I just put them into this Flutter application. I know it's a bit overkill, but it's basically a way to see the books I've read and just see the summaries of them, and that's what I'm working on.
Yeah, I've actually, that was the reason I guess I got the job in Dart and Flutter, because since 2011 I've been working on things in my spare time in Dart, and that was before Dart was a big deal. So yeah, I definitely have at least one big thing that I'm working on, and it's you can actually visit it on egamebook.com, and that's hopefully nearing completion, and it's been a really good experience, and Flutter really saved my ass many times. So yeah.
Okay. And is it possible to get access to native code that Flutter creates?
You mean the ARM code? So Flutter compiles to like the basically assembly code, right? So yes, you can look at the assembly code in like a hex editor and see the instructions, but it will be really hard to read. So I'm not sure. Hopefully I'm understanding the question correctly.
Actually,
There is, well, I mean, I was going to say there is actually an interesting article called, if you just search like Flutter, I think reverse engineering. Someone actually went ahead and wrote a blog post about reverse engineering a Flutter application and seeing what goes involved in it, and the tools that you see. You can see like he shows the code, right, and shows all this native code and how it looks. So you can do all that. Yeah, I mean the interesting point here is a lot of people. You got to kind of just want to put this out. There's twofold. You get a performance increase because you're using natively compiled stuff, but also you get a security increase because it's not the same as JavaScript. It's not an intermediary code representation like the bytecode from Java. So you get the full sort of, there's a lot of work you'd have to do to reverse engineer a Flutter application that's in release mode. So yeah, if people are interested.
And I have like a question that I found really interesting. For example, in Jose, how does the development process, for example, in Google, looks like?
Well, since like the work I do is pretty much open source, it depends on the type of project I'm working on. So, for example, anytime I'm working on a Flutter change, like on Stadia or range slider widget, I work on the feature. Once the feature is done, I have to create test cases, or if there's any failing tests, then I have to fix that test or whatnot. And then once everything's done for the PR, I guess, I get two of my workmates to review my PR, and then once everything looks good to them, I have to review it through one last person. Hans, he pretty much created like 60% of the Flutter framework, I guess. So he looks at the PR one last time just to see if it looks good or if he has anything to talk about. And then once he gives an LGTM, I submit it into the Flutter framework, I guess.
Yeah, if you wanna look at how that's the open source way, right? So yeah, we basically everything is the open. You can look at the PRs, you can look at the comments, and so on. There is also the kind of the internal stuff that obviously we can't really share, but if you're interested in this and kind of the sheer size of what we have there, I actually wrote an article a long time ago, and it's called How Google Builds Web Frameworks, I think. And back then it was about Angular Dart, I think, but it was mostly about there are things that are public about how Google builds things, it's like a huge one monorepo, and then everything is tested. And so like if you change a line of code in something like Flutter or something like, you know, a framework, then all the tests of everything that is depending on that line of code inside whole of Google, which is a huge big repository, needs to be run, right? So it makes things a little safer, because it's as if your GitHub project would run tests of everyone who depends on your GitHub project every time you change anything. So that's one thing that I really like about it. It's obviously also makes it sometimes frustrating, because you have like, you change something and then 10,000 tests die, and it's your responsibility to fix them. So yeah. But again, Flutter is open source. It's not it's obviously also used at Google, and it needs to go through all this stuff, but most of the development is open source.
Yep. And are there in a Flutter any cases that would you prefer using native Android, or?
Like, to be honest, coming from my perspective, I never really coded native Android, so I know there's cases where you'll want to, but in my case, I just stick with Flutter for now. Like for any personal projects, I guess. So.
Yeah, no. So I think there's definitely. Sorry for jumping into your speech, sir. But I think there are definitely things where if your app is very intertwined with the system's API. So for example, like if you have like a fitness tracker, or I don't know, like if you have a widget thing that lives on the phone screen, then it's probably, I would probably go with Android or iOS. Respectively, but if like generally, I think Flutter is more about the kind of the general purpose app, right? Where you have a UI and you may have some background processes, but it's not like all living in the platform things and so on. So yeah, there are definitely things that will be harder for you if you use Flutter and try to use the platform things like that.
Yeah, that's cool. Actually, I'm looking for another question. Guys, do you have some topic you wanna talk about?
I don't know. Oh, no, it's a question that's popped up. Oh yeah. I mean, the key. I mean, like this question here, right? Recently, Android added a ratings API without opening the Play Store. Can we accept this API in Flutter in the next or future release? You can already do that, right? Like the key point here is there's documentation on the Flutter.dev website which talks about how you make your own plugins with platform channels. You can go make your own plugin for this. You can just add it, just your own plugin to your own application. You don't have to release it as a separate package. You don't have to support it. You can just add it to your application. You can support this one feature of Android if you so wish. So there's no limitations there. But will it be released by the Flutter team?
Well, the question is
more important things, right? Go for it, Philip.
No, well, I wonder if I wonder if this API actually like gives you a view. And in that case, that would be a problem. Like it wouldn't be an unsurmountable problem, but if it gives you a view that you then put into your app with like little links. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry. I thought you were saying something, Simon. But yeah, if it's a view, then you'll have to go through some hoops. And if it's it's just a API where you just like call some backend code, then it's fine. It's as Simon said, you can
I mean, I was gonna say, even if like, so if it's like, I don't know, some library that displays an intent or does something on top, I mean, that would all still work. I mean, the point here is that there's things that are obviously more difficult than other things, but try it out for yourself before, don't wait for someone else to do it, right? Because no one's going to work, for you, right? Work for yourself, do it.
Yeah, there is another question. This might be interesting.
How to handle platform exception.
I think that this really depends on what the platform exception is, right? Like, so if it's a platform exception that tells you, I mean, if it's just a platform exception that just means that the plugin stopped working or something, then obviously you'll have to work with the plugin. But if it's a platform exceptions in, like, yeah, the file was not found, then that's your problem to fix. Either that file wasn't really there, or you basically do the same thing as if you were programming pure Android, right? Like, you would be like, that's a problem.
So, I mean, first of all, I wouldn't mind answering this and say that you can access a file and folder straight from your Flutter app, right? It has the ability to open and read files, right? So there might be something else going on there, but obviously, like, depends on the implementation of that platform specific code, as Philip was saying. But there's one thing that a lot of people forget. Well, a lot of plugin developers aren't doing, which I'm just going to throw out there right now, and that is, if you throw back an error from a platform channel, it'll get thrown back as a platform exception. That platform exception is supposed to be caught by your plugin, and you can return back a proper exception based on its code, which is like a unique string, right? So you can return back. So it says file not found, then they can throw back a file not found exception in Dart or some other thing that might give your application the ability to handle that appropriately and displays something to the user and say it's not found, or to do something differently. So if you're seeing a platform exception, it probably means also the plugin's buggy in some way, or should be dealing with that in a different way.
Yeah, and there's another question right under the screen. What do you think about it, guys?
So is Flutter going to be used by Google Fuchsia for app development? We generally don't speak about Fuchsia. If you can look at the open source project, then you'll see that there are many different ways to develop for Fuchsia, and one of them is using Flutter.
Yep, exactly what Philip said.
Yeah, and I guess the last question is right on the screen, because I don't want to hold you for a long day, because you certainly have another program. So how can I become a Flutter expert? What do you think about it?
Build an app.
Yeah, I would just say, like, just start from the bottom up. Start, like, anything you want to create from the beginning. Like, just playing around. Like, if you want to do something, just search it up on Google. It's probably on Stack Overflow or on, like, the Flutter issues. And then from there on, you keep learning, and eventually you keep becoming more knowledgeable in this information. You just don't know everything from the beginning. Even now, like, anything, and a lot of the time when I'm working, I become, like, a lot of things I'm already used to doing, like, but it's still a lot of things I have to search up, and it's just through practice, I guess, like anything else. So build an app.
I was gonna say, yeah, I mean, practice. It's like there's I think I meme I posted a while ago. It was like someone was like, how'd you become so knowledgeable? Practice. But I don't understand it. How do you do this? Practice. It's like, but I don't understand it. Practice. It is just like just, learn, read the documentation, try things out, practice.
Yeah, and actually that's something I'm pretty, like, with Flutter, at least with my personal experience. It might seem like daring to get into at first, but something I really had a good experience with, especially with Flutter, is that the documentation in Flutter is, in my opinion, very superb, and awesome. Like anytime we update like the code within the Flutter framework, we have to update the documentation. And whenever you go to the API flutter.dev documentation, that comes directly from the code. So if you see like now we're implementing these dart pads that shows you, oh, this is how you're going to use like the slider widget. It helps a lot. And there's also like the boring show on Flutter. There's widget of the week. There's all these things that really like, there's a lot of resources you can use. So the best thing you could do is just practice, in my opinion. And then the resources are there, a lot of them at least.
Yeah, and definitely the publishing it to the App Store is another challenge. Okay, guys, thank you for your time and for joining us today. It was super, and I enjoyed a lot. And have a great day or night, because I don't know your time zones. And see you later, maybe on another conference.
Yes, thank you very much for your attention.
Very much.
Thank you for having us.
Yep. And the last thing today for me, just give me a second, I will share it, is the thing with a giveaway, because yep, I will use this move. Yeah. Basically, I have something like this. Thank you everyone for joining us today. It was super cool, and I enjoyed it a lot. Actually, I have still 5 vouchers on the Google merchandise store provided by Google. And I will raffle it now to all attendees that registered on the page. I'm not sure if I'm able to show you the raffle due to some GDPR stuff. So I guess I just will fill up here the names. So the first one who wins the £20 voucher in the Google merchandise store is Tomas. I will follow all the winners with the email. The next one is Mike. The third one is Morgan. The next one is Rona. And the last one is, I'm not sure about the name, is Alexandros. And the last one, the last prize, actually the bigger one, is the coffee with Googler from the Flutter team. And the guy who will win this is, I'm sorry for bad pronunciation, the name is Himanesh, like this. So thanks everyone for being here. I will send email to all winners and see you on another event.